All right, so we are back with our second episode on this four small town guys. There's only three of us tonight. Fourth maybe joining us later. We'll see how things go. I got myself, Jay. I'm your host tonight. Here with our South African connection, Tim. And I don't know how we pulled it off. Tim, I don't know how we managed this. But we have the one, the only...
I'm quite excited.
Andrew fucking Tate with us tonight.
Woo! I left the Bugatti at home, though.
Okay, so it's not the Andrew Tate, but it is an Andrew Tate. So we're going to roll with it tonight.
Look, he's twice the man Andrew
No
Tate is.
clickbait there.
Oh, definitely. It's got way more hair, too. A little jealous.
For now.
That's okay. So we're hanging out here. We're watching the Jake Paul Tyson fight. Hoping to see Tyson crush a man's skull on a live event, but we'll see what happens. See if the scripts are accurate or if it's going to be a legit fight.
And the prediction was a 5th round knockout.
Yeah, from the leaked scripts, it was going to be Paul with a 5th round knockout. So we'll see how it pans out here. It could just be all for television.
We were talking before the recording started how it was a flight or flight situation with Tyson. Even if it was scripted, after the first couple of hits or you get a cheap shot in, a switch might get flipped, right? And you might see the unleashing of the beast and just go for power shots, not even worrying about defense, and just power to
them. That's his brain's going to shut off on the script and just go back to that primal fucking tear a man's head off kind of situation.
Looking forward to it either way. I think it'll be an interesting bout.
What was the joke you said this morning when we were talking about this? Or no, earlier this afternoon? We're going to be sitting here talking into our mics while Jake Paul's going to be running from his.
I'm quite excited.
That's way too creepy.
Sorry, I'm quite excited.
So how's everybody's week been?
Oh, I've been productive. I mean, I got out of
You've been kind of under the weather a little bit?
Yeah. Dealing with some ups and downs and ins and outs.
Ooh. Okay, we knew your wife was pregnant, but we don't need to know the details of how it happened, okay?
I could draw you a picture.
I have seen your drawings, so it might be entertaining.
I heard they were sketchy.
There we go.
There we go. My first excuse to use the new soundboard.
Yeah, I'd be doing a little better if my dog stayed at home.
Yeah, I was. We were at the funeral, and Danielle was like, "Do you want to get a hold of Andrew?" Yeah, I can probably reach him. Why? Yeah, his dogs aren't at home.
Yeah, and they're about 5 miles from my place. And then he said they went down into the coulee.
Steven said his buddy sent him a Snapchat of them down in the coulee, like at the campsite.
I bet you by the time I get home tonight, though, they'll be there. Or if not in the morning. So.
They're going full Milo and Otis adventure here. Like,
So a way that's going to help that is if you trim the nails down to the knee, they should stay a little longer.
Yeah.
Makes it a little more uncomfortable to run anyways.
Yeah. Short of a bear, though, I don't think any coyotes are going to be messing with them. I mean, he's a part Irish Wolfhound and giant Alaskan Malamute.
They're not tiny dogs. That's not the problem. The problem is if they're...
Yeah.
We were just hoping that, because Colt was out at Stephen and Danielle, so we were hoping there wasn't a little bit of wolf on Malamute action happening.
Yeah. That's...
But Colt's usually pretty good. He's not a real territorial dog.
And it's hunting season now, right? Hunting season just opened today, so I'm hoping nobody sees it and thinks, oh, hey, take a sheep shot out of a wolf, protect the farmers from wolves in the area, because it could look like that from a couple 100 yards away for sure.
Yeah, especially with buck fever going on, you're not really paying attention to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went out, I kind of half-assed looked for some mule deers, but it was a lot like last year when we were at Whitetail. There's not a lot around. There's not a lot moving.
No, like I've seen more moose than I have seen whitetail.
God. Frick, I think I've seen 8 moose in the first 2 weeks of November.
Wow. Yeah.
So they're...
And someone was saying that the moose end up pushing the deer out.
Yeah, the bigger the animals, they'll push them out. And I saw elk down in the coulee, well, just outside of the coulee about 5 years ago. And another guy had a good picture of one just south of the farm a bull elk down at the bottom of the coulee. So if there's elk and moose,
There's no
the deer are just going to freaking move on. They're not going to put up with that kind of competition. So I guess we'll see. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to try and get a whitetail. Are you getting a license this year?
I was thinking about it. I got to figure out what time it's going to fit the weekends. So many things going on with kids hockey and girls and dance and
Yeah.
all the family activities going on. But yeah, if I can block out a weekend of where I can make it fit, then I'll probably purchase one and see if that weekend lines up with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got weekends free. Yeah, that's fine. Go out and drive around anyways. Excuse to tour the country.
Yeah, and then I was talking to one of my coworkers today, and they actually do like baited spots with blinds. And so he's like, oh, hey, maybe we'll have to get you out. I was like, I've never done that style of hunting, so I don't know.
Yeah, like if you want to just go out and shoot something,
Yeah.
that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
But to me, that's not hunting.
Yeah.
That's shooting. Because you're just baiting them in. And it's perfectly legal in Saskatchewan. You're allowed to bait on private lands.
Well,
so.
and they have like the trail cameras all set up, so they've got their like 2 or 3 that they're earmarking with their buddies and guys of, oh no, this one's with the antlers like this are going to be mine. So
Yeah, can't shoot that one. You got to move on to the next one.
yeah.
What about South Africa? Do you guys have like any sort of hunting seasons down there or anything? Or
They've got hunting. They've got actual hunting game farms and things like that. So you can
Yeah.
go anytime pretty much for certain stuff.
But they have like where you can, like up here, right? You go and you buy a license and then
For
you
certain
drive
stuff,
around.
yes.
Oh,
For
okay.
certain stuff, yeah. Then you actually have like the actual game farms itself where they raise animals to be hunted. But it's on like big open land. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to,
Yeah, there's a lot of places like that in the States. I think there's some up here in Canada too.
I've never done it.
I've heard about it more in the U.S.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's just enough roaming around animals up here that
That you don't really need to unless you're looking for like those
Yeah.
trophy kind of.
I think maybe
animals.
more in Ontario.
Yeah, that could
Sort
be.
of the parts around northern Toronto as you get into the Sudbury area.
Yeah, we used to get a lot of American hunters up here, and it's like they still come for duck and goose, but for big game they don't really come up this way unless they're going far north for like elk or something like that.
I wonder if you'll see more of them because the dollar's dropped, right? So those fly-in trips just became 50% off almost,
Yeah, they're much cheaper and affordable for those guys. So
which is also going to help local industry with the export market. I know all of our products just became cheaper for Americans to buy.
it's going to be a lot better. I mean, I would love it if our Canadian government could push an election and get rid of our current government, but. Sorry, I'm kind of half watching the intros to the fights here, and the fucking camera guy just got kicked by one of the cheerleaders.
Is that the Dallas Cowgirls or?
No, it's Mike Tyson's 72 Virgins.
Is he still a Muslim?
I don't know. That's a good question. I
He converted, I
would
think,
guess.
way back in the day.
Mind you, I haven't seen him wearing the little fucking cap for a while, so
Yeah.
maybe he got tired of it.
Well, it's difficult to be intimidating in the ring with one of those on.
It's definitely not a scary sight. That's for
Although
sure.
even just Mike Tyson himself is...
What do the Muslims call it? Because with the Jews, it's a yarmulke, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder, like,
I don't know.
because they got like the little fucking. It looks like a lace doily, really, that you just put on your fucking head. But
Yeah, I don't know. Prayer cap or something. I mean, I guess the Catholics have something similar. The Pope's got a little white version of that.
that's true. He does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
It's more like male patterned
So did
baldness cover up.
Did the Catholics take it from the Jews, or did the Jews take it? Well, I mean, the Jews were around before the Catholics, so
I think the Pope is just covering up what he really is. That's why he's got all the colours. He just don't want to show off the white, pointy part.
He's South American, so I don't know.
yeah, we got to watch him.
Depends what part of Brazil. Oh, he's not from Brazil. He's from. Where is he from?
The current Pope?
Yeah,
I'm not
Pope
sure.
Francis.
Where's our Jamie?
Venezuela?
Oh, he's not here tonight.
Vatican.
That's where he's residing now.
He relocated. Claimed asylum.
Because where did the Germans end up after World War II? It was in Brazil?
Oh yeah, we
Brazil,
talked about this last
Antarctica,
week. The tip
South
of Argentina
America.
there.
Argentina. That's where
Yeah.
the Pope's from. Argentina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Got some German
Maybe a
heritage.
connection there.
He's got some German heritage going on.
I think if you lift the hat, let's see what the hair looks like. What is his eyes? White? Blue?
So we had some requests after our last podcast there after the first one, and I apologize again. I cannot apologize enough for the audio on that one. That was just freaking terrible. I made it reasonably listenable, but it was still terrible. And I'm hoping that this time we've got some new equipment and a little smaller space. We'll get a little better recording going on this time.
So you all know, we're all just kind of cuddling together around one mic.
Just holding shoulders, singing Kumbaya. But one of the things I'd asked our listeners was to give us some ideas on topics and stuff like that, things they'd like to hear discussed about. And the one that came up was the moon landing. So it's an interesting subject. We'll talk about the landing first. The moon itself is a totally separate subject that I don't even know if it is a moon. You know, it's not a moon. That's a space station.
Death Star or a block of cheese? Kind of get different directions here.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of the Death Star, but the question is, how old is it? Anyways, that's topic.
And is it hollow and does it ring like a bell?
According to science, yes. Yes, it does.
Well, it could be the Death Star, but the block of cheese theory comes from all the waste that's been pumped out on the outside, so we think it's cheese. Tastes the same, but meanwhile...
Dusty cheese.
I'm not eating the dusty cheese. I don't even like that blue cheese shit. I'm not eating the moon cheese shit.
Didn't
That's
they
for sure.
throw a probe at it the size of a school bus? I don't know, like 10
when they
years
left the moon the second or third time, they dropped something from the craft itself to hit the moon to test the seismic activity.
Yeah, and it
started
reverberated for
reverberating.
like what,
Then they
45 minutes or something like
Yeah.
that. Like it was a ridiculous amount of time.
Then they
That
did
the
it
moon-
again.
Maybe they just had bad mics like your first podcast.
I mean, it was the 60s.
Then they did it again
possible.
on one of their later missions. They actually did it on purpose. They dropped something to test the same theory. And
Yeah.
it rung for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking more recently. I thought it was, I don't know, sometime in the last 10, 15 years, they launched a probe the size of like a school bus
Oh, okay.
and literally shot it into the moon to see how the crater would form, how the dust would settle. But I don't remember hearing anything about, ringing or resonation or...
Actually, didn't hear about that one either.
Interesting. Yeah, that's another one to research and look into because I know that's one of the things that people bring up when they're talking about whether the moon landing happened or not was the lack of dust and there's no blast crater when the module landed on the surface. But there's also no atmosphere on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the dust going to disperse into? Like it's just going to move and fall. It's not going to be like here where it blows up into the air and it circles around and then settles on everything. It's just going to move to the sides.
Mm-hmm. And part of the idea of if your craft is landing, really all that's being thrust down is the propellant it's not moving the air with it. So you think about how you blow up those big garbage bags or those inflatable tube couches.
Yeah.
Is you actually blow air and the air rushing in it grabs other air with it. Well, if you got no atmosphere on the moon, you're literally just the propellant coming out of the rocket engines that's going to make that crater.
Yeah, there's no air to spill out and flow around. So you don't have that. Same thing with when the feet touch down, they're not going to kick dust up into the air because there is no air to kick the dust into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the particles aren't being suspended either.
I mean, my big thing is, right, because everybody's like, oh, it didn't happen or it did happen, that they went to the moon. Personally, I'm pretty sure they went to the moon. I don't think that they didn't go. But the other question is, if they didn't go, why? Why would there be this, 66 when they landed?
69.
69 when they landed?
Yeah.
So we're 50 years later?
Well, I mean,
why? What advantage would there be to fake going to the moon?
Well, I think some of
Russia.
the theories that come to is the space race, right? So it's beating Russia, right?
Mhm.
And so you're essentially getting into an economic war of who can spend the most amount of money and get to the moon. And so if you can fake going to the moon, you're getting your competition to spend more money and to eventually bankrupt themselves, which ultimately is what took down the USSR.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that as a theory. The other idea is that, well, they're funneling so many billions of dollars into NASA, so that was going to other side projects, similar to the military where they buy the, $40,000 hammer. And
Just kind of as a cover for Black Ops spending.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I don't think NASA's budget's big enough to really be, they spend more money on other, money going off to Ukraine and things like that, in comparison to what the NASA budget is. I don't really buy that excuse. Like they find ways of spending money and shuffling money and hiding money. Just look at all the CIA budgets.
Yeah.
I don't know that they needed NASA as the cover for that funneling of it.
Yeah, that's true.
So a big part of the whole idea of the cover-up is that Russia was a hell of a ways ahead of the US with all their technologies when it came to the military stuff. And every time the US would try and launch a rocket, it would fail. But Russia would get a rocket off the ground, or so they were always a few steps ahead. Mm-hmm. And in that war scenario, if your opponent is that much further ahead of you, it's very scary on the world platform. And so to kind of say, okay, well, we win. They said, all right, cool, we put someone on the moon.
Yeah,
I personally believe that they did go.
Yeah.
But I'm an optimist.
I can understand that. The logic of that makes 100% sense. Mm-hmm. But now we're here we are 50 years later. You don't think China or Russia in their current situation wouldn't jump on a fucking chance to show the North American civilization, like the whole Western civilization, that you've been lied to since the 70s?
Yes and no, depending on what the powers that be at that higher level are hiding together.
So you're saying that the Eastern elite are in cahoots with the Western elite, and so they wouldn't want to topple that. Yeah,
very much. I mean, Trump goes and visits him anyways for a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
and they know each other. They're good friends.
Yeah,
they know each other. They know what's going on. Well, they look after.
Go back to the whole global level cabal. That's
there's all the connections of every different way. Yes, you piss one of them off. I mean, you piss a good friend off, he's going to take a swing. Same concept. Doesn't matter.
It happens. It happens.
Everyone else around there, I mean, big businesses, they all in cahoots. But the staff down in the workshop, they don't know nothing.
No.
Well, and it's not even that they need to necessarily be in formal cahoots with a grand architect and a master plan. They just need to have common goals and interests, right? So if they're all working towards their same end goal, they don't need to coordinate the details and the finer plans. They just work on it all, because they have that same end point.
A lot of the big part is, think about what Trump wants to put. He's pushing heavy now, drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
And everything was stopped because of climate change and all this and this and that. So Trump says, cool, come on over, come drill.
Yeah.
Who's not going to go be friends with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a valid point. Right?
I won't tell your secrets. Let me into play.
I mean, that was the biggest thing Trump's whole first 4 years that he was in office was he was protecting U.S. interests. He didn't give a shit about anybody else. Mm. And that's what pissed a lot of people off. He was like, the piggy bank's fucking shut off. I'm worrying about our country first. Mm. And, like him or hate him, you got to respect kind of that mentality because he is looking out for his American...
He was looking out for his people. Yeah, I mean, even look at the way they approached NAFTA, too. I mean, basically, they were kind of going along with negotiations, and then they were like, we're just going to exclude Canada. They signed it with Mexico and basically gave Canada an ultimatum. Sign it the way we've written it, or you're out of the table. And so Chrystia Freeland was basically just, sidestepped. Peter Zion's got some great comments about this of, she's, probably infinitely smarter than Trump, but she got so politically outmaneuvered it wasn't even funny. Right.
Smart and her are not a word that I would put in the same sentence, but that's.
Well, this is coming from a leftist geopolitical expert. But getting back to the moon, though, one of the theories that I have is there's so many photos that come into question, or even some of the video evidence. And what we were talking about previously is, I think that the goal of getting it onto TV, having the best images for Time magazine, all of these sorts of things, there was probably some liberties taken where they used photos that were done on the sound stage and on those other areas were that used for training grounds that were then used in the publication's releases. because at the time they were viewed as being so good that, wow, it's going to be a better photo for the magazines and for the TV shoots, that, oh, well, nobody's ever going to pick up on this. Like, who's going to look into it that fine of detail of where the crosshairs line up, or maybe where the angle of the cameras were set up, or the fake lighting. So I do believe that there was a sound stage, there was a physical stage set up to simulate the training activities, and then in the course of the publication releases, some of those photos were interspersed with the actual real photos and footage.
See, I can do the Joe Rogan. Wow. And honestly, because I think that's a great theory. It's something that had never even crossed my mind, but it does make sense.
See, a big part was when they actually did the original landing, the TV cameras and the crews wanted to film directly from NASA itself, but they said no. So what NASA did was they set up a camera in front of the TV and filmed. And that was what everybody else got to watch, was that what was coming through the TV screen. One of the reasons they did that was in case something happened or whatever, they could pause it and it's not that live situation. Mm-hmm. But a big part of why they have all this big conspiracy theory is because NASA lost all the original footage.
Yeah,
they say it was missing. They say it was accidentally recorded over.
Yeah, the excuse that they gave was that there was a shortage of magnetic tape in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was recorded over. I will agree that seems a little sus.
I think that's what pushed a lot of that conspiracy theory is, oh shit, we lost it. And then the same idea is, okay, so why haven't we been back? Well, we lost that technology and we don't know how to do it again.
No, we haven't been back because there's moon bases up there and the aliens said, you stay to fuck off our rock.
I think so.
Well, in terms of losing technology, it is interesting because one of the shows that I had watched, it talked about how they welded the fuel channels in the big bell cone on the Saturn V rockets. And they actually say that the welders at the time were such skilled craftsmen in terms of how they did this metal fabrication. And it was such a specialized, nuanced niche of this technology that once those guys kind of retired and left, nobody else was doing that specific kind of welding technology. They basically used like a wax molded melting out the channels. And I'm like, if there's no other practical application, I kind of get that excuse of that in terms of what we lost as technology. I wouldn't really say it's a lost technology as opposed to it as a skill set to craftsman. Just like I don't think if we wanted to build a 13th century cathedral in Europe, we'd be hard pressed to find enough stonemasons that could be that detailed. Yeah, there's probably, a couple hundred in the world, but to have them concentrated to build, like a cathedral, a specific village in France, yeah, we're just not going to be able to duplicate that in today's technology.
Yeah. No, and I get that, but we're also at a situation now where, we've got ground-based aircraft that we can send to space and land on a fucking floating barge in the middle of the ocean. We can't figure out something that can land on a microgravity rock in zero atmosphere?
Why? And they've landed probes on asteroids, right? Like
we got robots driving around Mars right now, but we don't got the technology to go back to the fucking moon?
Well, they've sent probes. Like China's sent probes to the moon.
Right? Yeah, they've got so did India, but...
Yeah, well, yeah, the Shanghai or whatever it was.
Have you seen those pictures?
Yeah. I think it comes down to economic reason for it. So in the 60s and 70s, there was an economic reason, again, trying to outcompete the USSR, that there was a financial case that JFK could make that commitment and the rest of the country was behind it because we wanted to beat USSR, that you could justify spending those billions of dollars. To do that in today's time, it's like, well, okay, so the Chinese can upstage the Americans, I don't know, to spend several $billion, even though they could probably do it cheaper than we could. It's still like, well, they can build a high-speed rail network. Well, they really upstage the Americans on that one.
Yeah.
They've got hundreds of kilometers of high-speed rail. The U.S. is, I don't know if they have any, right? Like,
yeah, do they even have any high-speed rail?
So, I mean, they've chosen to invest their showmanship projects in other ways that have practical applications.
I think now that Trump's back in, the money with Trump and Musk kind of playing together, the money's going to be reallocated in better places other than, printing out multicolored flags.
Funny thing
they spent a lot of money on that crap. So.
With Trump, and I didn't look into this today, but my son was talking to me about it. Mm-hmm. And apparently Trump is crowdsourcing a lot of his appointments.
Oh, really?
So, like, Brandon Herrera is currently the leader to head up the fucking ATF.
I'm not even sure who that is. Who's Brandon Herrera?
He's a former military guy. He's got a big YouTube channel. Big gun guy. He makes fun of the ATF
Nice.
all the time. So the fact that he could actually be appointed as the head of the ATF is just like, I don't even know if there's any validity to this. I didn't take time to actually research this, but just the thought of that is
I'm very keen
crazy.
to see how this runs.
But then there were some criticisms, like, for example, Marco Rubio, who literally during the campaigns had, called Trump, I'm trying to think of the words he used, basically calling him a fraud, I think was, something along those lines. And yet now he's, appointed him into a cabinet position. I think is it Department of Homeland or something like that. Like, it just,
okay, interesting.
So stuff like that where he's not really he's more of a classical Republican, old party establishment GOP, as opposed to the new wave of Trump. And so I just don't quite get some of those appointments. Other ones like RFK Jr. For Department of Health.
Yeah.
So that's good to see. Having the czars of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, I think that's a great lineup for that.
Yeah.
So I think he's made some really great decisions, but at the same time, it's interesting some of the choices. It's almost like some strings were still maybe being pulled there. Somehow.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm also waiting to see now, because he said on the Joe Rogan podcast that he's going to be releasing some information about certain files and certain activities that he was wanting to do in the previous time that he ran, but he's going to release more now. So,
yeah, and
hey, Trump, we just want to hear a little bit more about the moon landing, please.
Just give us the truth, man. Well, like I said in the last podcast, they can release all this information, but the problem is people don't give a fuck anymore.
Some people do, some don't.
Everyone's
desensitized, but for those who it does matter to, all three of us will enjoy it.
Yeah, well, exactly.
But it's whether enough people in the mainstream pick up on the information that's being released to then be carried as the new norm of publicly accepted information.
Yeah.
Right? And there is that threshold, and without the media being bought and paid for it in your back pocket, I don't know that the rest of society is going to come along, even if they do release this information.
Yeah.
Right. You look at things like Japan basically criticizing the vaccine as being, one of the worst medical interventions ever in human history. Well, that's a pretty bold statement. And really, is the mainstream media picking up on that? I get it's not North American scientists, but I don't know. They got some pretty smart people over there in Japan. And for them to publicly make that kind of statement, it's interesting that it really hasn't been carried here in the West.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the biggest problem with our society over here in the West in general, is that the media is controlled by, your global cabal that's controlling everything, and we're not getting the information. And we've still got a lot of our boomer generation was raised to believe that the media is the truth, right? And they're not.
Yeah, the Walter Cronkite's of the world.
Yeah.
Basically, where you could never question what they say because they are the epitome of truth.
Exactly. So, and that was capitalized on, in my opinion, during the last, 15, 20 years. They've been using this to manipulate popular opinion on whatever they want to manipulate, right?
Yeah, and that's still going to be a huge uphill battle, even though, Trump's got his position, the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court. There's still a huge uphill battle of all of the political appointees that have then burrowed in. So watching Redacted the other night, shout out to them. They talked about how all of these political appointees then take on high-level positions that are still sort of, in another phrase, unionized. They can't get rid of them just at the stroke of a pen from the commander-in-chief. They'd actually have to go through, employee terminations and follow those sort of like employment laws, as opposed to just renaming another political appointee. So depending on the scale of how many of those people are across all of these different government departments, you still have a government body that is so heavily swayed and pushing for the Democrats and for that left-wing agenda that it's a massive uphill battle. The draining the swamp is not going to be easy, even though he's aware of it this time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your swamp is more like a ocean. It's not just this shallow level you got to get rid of. Like it is.
Yeah.
Shout out to Oak Island.
Oak Island. Now there's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down with that shit.
But yeah, so personally, I'm down for the moon landing. I think definitely happened. And,
Yeah. I think we're all in
there's a lot
agreement that
more-
it did happen.
But I think there's a lot more in the behind the scenes that hasn't been released.
Yeah.
And again, with a lot of the theories and all of it, there's misdirection.
Yeah.
So there's lots of good information thrown in, and thrown in with a bunch of bad information, so that it does kind of mix it up. It's just to keep everybody kind of guessing.
Well, and that goes to the whole basis of the idea of conspiracy theory. It was literally a term
Yeah.
coined by the CIA to discredit actual reasonable theories.
Mhm.
Well, and that's like because the CIA, DOD, they're all using this as a way to misdirect people, right? Now you're taking these quote unquote whistleblowers, talking about whatever Area 51 or whatever stuff they were involved with, and they're feeding this information to the quote unquote conspiracy theorists, but it's all bullshit information.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it makes the conspiracy theorists look even more crazy because they're buying into this bullshit. So it's the whole thing is another psyop that's just
It's sort of an inception method. It's psyop within a psyop within a psyop.
exactly.
Yeah, and layers and levels of, if you can control the leaks, then you can control how those leaks are then perceived. And if you do have a legitimate leak that gets out, you flood it with 5 or 10 other leaks.
Yeah.
And then so it just looks like a flood of crazy tinfoil-hatted people.
Yeah.
Even though one of those stories may have been, a semblance of the truth or have gotten onto some real information.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. It's the whole thing, like the US government in general is just fucking with everybody on everything. But it's like you said, it's not even just the US government, right? Like it's kind of a whole broader scope of worldwide powerhouses, your Rothschilds and your the fuck was that other one there? You know.
Yeah.
My mind's blanking, but
Well, even if you look at how they were able to roll out the World Health Organization planning during COVID, right? People are like, oh, well, how would you ever get that many medical professionals all around the world all in cahoots? I don't know. It's quite easy. WHO releases a statement that goes to the chief medical officer for Canada, which gets disseminated to the chief medical officers for each of the provinces. And similar sort of stories happen throughout different countries and states in the world. So you don't actually need to convince a whole lot of people. You got to convince a couple of people at the top and have enough supporting documentation and paid scientists in your back pocket that it doesn't take a whole lot of information to be able to then... Nobody's going to question your chief medical officer of Canada. Nobody's going to question, Dr. Shabab here in the province of Saskatchewan. You're taking the authority that the position bestows, and you're leveraging that to deliver that false narrative.
yeah.
I don't think it's even as complicated. I think it's more like dangling the funding and a couple of extra checks in the back pocket to the right people, and you're done. We had that
Follow the
big
money
time
trail.
in South Africa. It was big. My doctor that side, he's like, most of the people go to hospital, they have a heart attack, they get told, no, you sign it off, it's COVID. Otherwise, you don't get funding. That's how a lot of the numbers just shot up like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there was
just
reports of hospitals in California getting upwards of $500,000. $500,000 per valid COVID death.
Wow, that's a huge incentive. And then everyone else is disincentivized to step out and speak up. I know doctors, for example, that even though their beliefs were such that they didn't want to have their messaging come out, they basically were not wanting to risk their job. They didn't want to risk their whole career to stand out for something because so many other people around them were all afraid of what would have happened to them. They would lose their medical license. They'd lose their credibility. Even though they're great doctors, they're skilled at what they do, they just weren't willing to put that on the line for something that they weren't necessarily 100% in belief
Yeah,
with.
they were uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable to the point where they wanted to risk their careers.
Exactly. So a lot of them were feeding, private information to patients that they knew were receptive to those messages, and they were feeding great medical information behind the scenes, but they weren't going to chart it. They weren't going to put that on paper, and they'd still get their patients to sign off waivers saying they've been duly informed of all, proper COVID protocols before they left the office. So I definitely have heard firsthand stories of cases like this, and shout out to, to those great doctors who were still willing to help and assist their patients. But it was further evidence that you can control something on this global type scale with very limited people actually being in the know, and the rest of the people just don't want to step out of bounds and put their neck on the line.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, whether you think it was legit, you think it was bullshit, the fact that they were able to control the population worldwide as quickly and as effectively as they did should be concerning.
So recent developments on that, Fauci not too long ago admitted the 6 feet of separation was a number literally pulled out of the air. There was no scientific rationale about, maybe air droplet particulate spread and distance patterns. It was a number pulled out of the air because that's what they thought they could get away with and still make reasonably manageable. And then you've got the U.S. government. What did they release the other day in regards to COVID? It just slipped my mind. But again, it just all comes back to that information was being controlled, and most people just didn't want to step out of bounds to question. You couldn't question the science. Well, it depends on where the science is coming from. If you've got a paid scientist and then nobody else is willing to challenge that, well, you don't really have to question it too hard. But everyone's just going to fall in lockstep.
The whole purpose of science, though, is to question your findings.
Oh, don't do that.
There's-
Use your funding.
No, there's never a situation in an actual scientific research where you trust the science.
Mainstream will beg to differ.
I mean, it goes back to, you can go back to the climate change stuff with Margaret Thatcher when the coal miners were all on strike in UK. She paid a group of scientists. There's documents to back it up. She paid a group of scientists to prove that coal was bad because she wanted to fuck the miners and she wanted to push the nuclear. So she had a group of scientists and they found out, well, carbon dioxide is bad. It's a greenhouse gas. It traps heat. Yeah, it's going to kill the earth. It's going to melt the ice caps. It's going to flood the world. You got to get rid of coal.
But also, don't forget, the scientists also did say tobacco is good for you.
9 out of 10 doctors recommend Camel cigarettes.
I think a big part of COVID was a test run to see how quickly they could actually stop civilization and run it in the way that they want to run it. I think if they go there or try it or do something like another time, it's not going back to normal. They're going to get it to a point. They're going to cut out everything.
It was almost
Personal
martial
things,
law without
personal
being
things.
martial law.
Well, and this is the great reminder, so thank you for that, Tim. Again, this is something I picked up off of Redacted, and they were talking about how the U.S. government had plans to create quarantine camps similar to what they did in Australia, right? So now you've got public information. They were trying to have these quarantine situations. Like, you think they would have learned something from the Japanese internment camps they had in the U.S. and how they've paid reparations to some of the families, and similarly in Canada.
Say it like it is. They got all of this from the Germans. Just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, but here's the thing. They had these practices. They've publicly apologized for them, and then they put in plans to essentially duplicate what they did back in the 40s.
Yeah, I mean, there was way too many questions about everything that was done to not make you ask questions about this stuff. Or is it all part of the overall, DLC that's on the simulation that we're living in?
One world government.
Well, I thought Elon Musk debunked that himself. He's like, the chances of us being in the prime simulation versus subsequent ones.
Well, I mean, there's nothing saying that we're the original simulation. This is the Matrix, right? This is like the 6th iteration of the Matrix.
Yeah, he doesn't say that we're the original. It's very unlikely that we're the original, but we could be somewhere within the development of multiples.
Mm-hmm.
So we could be anywhere along that spectrum.
So maybe Trump is Neo, just coming to reset the simulation back to a default mode.
Or he's Mr. Smith.
Or it could be Mr. Smith. I saw an interesting video on quantum theory, and once again, I take it with a grain of salt because it's just a video that I came across. So, But
If it was on the internet, it was real.
I saw it
Just like
online.
this
It's
podcast.
true. But when you go down to quantum theory, when you go down to the atomic level and past the atomic level into the quantum realm and stuff like that, right? Nothing actually touches, right? So you touch the table, you touch your microphone, your headphones, and you're touching it. You know it's real. But technically, you're not actually touching anything. Because
Are you touching the fields around it?
at the subatomic level, there's no contact. So all you're doing is touching the electromagnetic field. So if electromagnetics can give us a feeling of solidness, of real, there's nothing to say that this isn't a simulation all made out of energy, right? Everything is, when you break it down, everything is energy.
That's a good point.
It's, it's
I got a business idea. I think we should go with it. We can completely eliminate Viagra. We can have quantum pills, straight to the point.
So, but there's a funny thing, because if we are living in a simulation, right? And with the election results, there's been a lot of people self-deleting because of the election results. If we're in a simulation, is that like the equivalent of rage quitting? Oh, we can do that.
Self-deleting, getting
Well,
off track.
I never said we were politically correct or non-offensive.
Taking cancel to a whole new level.
We haven't even started. We can't be canceled yet. If you're at the bottom,
You're gonna get a retro ban 5 years from now. They're like looking back at old podcasts.
So it looks like our first event is finished. They went all 6 rounds. I don't know. I think we're still waiting on the judges for this one to get a decision. I didn't see it looked like a good back and forth battle. Our fourth small town guy that wasn't able to make it in tonight has been updating on the chat group here.
Very productive.
Oh, hit him!
He'd be much more productive if he was here actually giving the verbal commentation instead of
Yeah, but some people just have better priorities. Sit there and watch.
like your family. Really, that's more important. Come on.
I mean, kids, we can make more.
That's why bears eat their young, right? They can always have another one. Well, it looks like Goyat won by decision.
Cue product placement. There we go. That's the bread for the.
Well, you got to get the sponsors in there. You got to get that paycheck, man.
Is this in Vegas?
This is in Dallas, I believe.
Okay, that's why the Dallas Cowgirls were there.
Yeah. So we're just about an hour into the event, and we've only had one fight so far. Which could be a late night, boys.
Those are long-ass 2-minute rounds.
Right? Well, I think these guys were doing 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. I wonder what the economic model for Netflix on this is. Just retaining subscribers?
I think, yeah, retaining subscribers and then banking on people will have bought.
Yeah, or they're
a
previously
monthly
canceled memberships. They're going to renew them and get them back live so they can watch this.
Yeah.
Also, those single time, can I rent it for the day type things, or live online stuff, like the old pay-per-view fights.
Mm-hmm.
This next one's slated for 12 rounds.
See, the woman only went 10 rounds because they have to get back to the kitchen.
So what does it say about these guys with 8 rounds?
They got to get back because they're waiting for the food.
They're giving them the couple round head start so that they can...
Well, Mike Tyson's going to eat Jake Paul. He's going to need a rub down.
Yeah, is there odds on like what part of Jake Paul Tyson's going to bite, or?
I don't know. It'd actually be very good to find out.
I think Vance was saying that the betting odds in Vegas were 67% on Jake Paul.
Yeah, Vegas has Tyson as the underdog in this fight. Hence the round 5 knockout script.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people on there. Like, you cannot be stupid enough to bet on this fucking scripted fight.
So let's take it another step further. What if it's just a stunt double that's in there for him?
Like those new fancy prosthetics masks, like Mission Impossible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like most of Biden's conversations when he was in office.
Yeah. Weekend at Bernie special.
Maybe Netflix is fucking with us and it's all just AI.
Oh, could very well be. Deep fakes?
May not even be real.
I wouldn't even say that deep.
Shallow fakes?
Lennox Lewis, eh? There we go.
It's very distracting.
Yeah, we gotta stop watching this.
Too much dead air time here.
We can't even fucking listen to the conversation because it's
Got it muted.
probably gonna be copyrighted on us. So,
So,
yeah. Advance is thinking Evander looks like Grandpa.
aliens, government moon base, hollow moon. What?
There is definitely something going on the moon. I think it's more realistic. The reason that we haven't been back to the moon is because the aliens told us to quit coming to the moon.
Interesting. I definitely believe in aliens. I just don't know that they're here.
Well, I think the surest sign that intelligent life exists in the universe is the fact that they haven't visited us.
Just like a big garbage dump. Let's stay away from.
Oh yeah, this is like when the aliens are coming past Earth, they lock the doors because they don't want to mess with that shit.
Well, they've seen what we do. Steal their
Right?
craft, start going back to the moon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the whole theory that there's the part of the simulation thing is because you've got a group of aliens that live off of, the chemicals that are produced from our emotions.
Yes.
And that's why the Earth is so shitty, is because negative emotions
Produce more chemicals.
are better than...
The Monsters Inc. theory.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they got to
Deflecting
turn on the
deflecting the
laughter
fear,
because the
right?
fear, the laughter is so much more powerful than fear.
And they got the
Well, and
soul capture on the moon.
They have a soul catcher.
Yeah. So that's the idea about reincarnation. Is we live this horrible life, miserable, and just keep dying these horrible lives. And when we die, our soul doesn't go up to heaven. It goes to the moon, to the soul catcher, which is where they get their sustenance from. And then after that, we get redispersed to Earth, reborn, to live the same old bullshit over.
Do it
and
over and over and over again. See, and if the Earth kept a consistent population, I would find that a little more believable. The fact that our population is continually growing is, where do these other souls come from? Right? Like,
Hydra.
what creates a soul? Hydra.
You cut off one head to make more.
The soul's just spontaneously...
It works out because you cut off one head, you make more. So if it's just woman, we would have stayed the same size. Sorry, if we stayed the same size. If it was just woman, we would have stayed the same. But because there's men, 2 heads, we kill them. Makes like 4, 5, 6. So,
Exponential growth.
Exactly.
Well, not at current North American birth rates.
No.
I mean, most of the geopoliticalists, anybody's looking at demographers, I mean, populations are collapsing all around the world. I mean, I think South Korea is at a birth rate less than 1 now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what? So China and India are still positive, are they not?
No, China's low because they had their one-child policy.
Yeah, I thought after they had...
And I don't think it ever rebounded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they may have had a small uptick, but it was still less than replacement rate of 2.1. I think India has a positive birth rate, or a replacement rate at least. I thought they were in like the 2 to 3 range.
So there's got to be somebody that's still, because we're still...
African nations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know about South Africa, but continental, the rest of it from the tip and up, I believe they have the...
What about the Middle East? Is the Middle East getting a lot of that?
I don't know. I don't think Saudi Arabia and Qatar and things like that, but maybe Iran. I don't know. I haven't looked at those stats to...
I'm just curious, like, does the Muslim religion allow for that same sort of...
Well, typically they have larger
go
families.
forth and multiply kind of thing.
Oh,
right?
definitely. Yeah, no, I think they definitely do. I think countries like Indonesia, which predominantly Muslim, I think 90% Muslim, they have, still think, fairly high birth rates. So some of those Asian Muslim nations, I think, still have fairly high birth rates. But for the Western world, it's we are all in steep decline, and it'd be interesting to see. I mean, for China, they're predicting to have half the population that they currently do, I think, by 2050.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they'll be at 500 or 600 million people by 2050.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it'll be a massively skewed older population.
Yeah.
Which is what they, sort of the Japan syndrome, right? I mean, they have to create robots just to essentially be elderly care aides.
Yeah. Yeah. To take care of the aging population.
I'm keen on the idea of robots coming in because what Musk was saying the other day actually was that he thinks everyone's going to have a robot. Kind of like we all have cell phones.
Yeah.
Kind of same as in iRobot.
Yep.
We're all going to have a robot doing stuff for us.
I still haven't decided if Elon Musk is a, benevolent genius or a supervillain in training.
No, I think he's a supervillain all the way. I think he's definitely a supervillain, but a likable one.
It's got charisma.
Although the left really got off on him, so I don't know how likable he is in terms of the mainstream narrative anymore.
Okay, so to the people that actually matter, to the right, we're good. We like him.
Yeah, I look at Elon as the quintessential. He's an entrepreneur that I don't know if he's necessarily concerned with any sort of global elite strategy, other than I think he was tired of getting sort of shit on by the left. And so that's why I think he's leaned more towards the Trump Republicans. I think he sees a path to freedom of speech. It's why he bought X or why he bought Twitter and formed it into X. So I don't necessarily believe he's a supervillain, but I also think that there may be some manipulative forces even higher up than him that are maybe gearing things for his direction. I don't know that his heart is necessarily evil in sort of that sense of that he's coming up with these master. I don't believe he's on the same level as George Soros. That's trying to pull strings.
Definitely.
I don't get that manipulation vibe from that. But
I'm thinking more like the nerd that was picked on in school and now has the power to
Revenge of the Nerds,
destroy all the fuckers that
I think
pissed him off.
He's like Megamind.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Yeah, I could see that.
He has the potential to be really bad, but he's bad in a good way, in a fun way. And I don't think he's one of the big cabal leaders they're controlling everything, but I'm sure he's one of the 5 fingers of the puppet. He's definitely involved there somewhere. That he's got,
Yeah.
Yeah, is he a tool of the elite? He's allowed to, create these multi-billion-dollar organizations and develop these new technologies and push the advancement of, human society in terms of science and engineering. And he never, I don't think, makes the claim that it's him doing it. It's just he's got an ability to put their capital and the right people into the right room and to drive those people relentlessly until they produce results. It's not Elon doing most of the engineering research on this thing. Yes, he's an incredibly intelligent man. He read a whole bunch of books, and now he's, guiding the rocket engineers on rocket science.
Yeah, taking those smart people and using them to put his ideas into practice.
He puts them together, gives them that vision, and then just has unrelenting drive to push those people, until they hit their breaking point. And then he hires the next group of scientists.
Yeah.
So the burnout rates at Tesla and SpaceX, very, very high, even with the computer engineers that are left at X. I mean, he fired a whole whackload of them, but he's making the ones that are left work for their money, and he's producing amazing results. What did they fire? It was like 70% of their workforce.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. But also, he's not just a put guys to work kind of dude too. He sleeps in the lab. He actually gets involved with the engineers and starts and works.
Yeah.
He's not okay, you guys go do that, and I'm going to sit here reading a book. He reads a book and works at the same time.
He's got Saskatchewan family roots. So.
Yeah. Swift Current.
And South African family roots.
See?
Yeah, he left South Africa to go to Swift Current.
I take my hat off to him.
It's like you're following in Elon's footsteps.
Yeah. Uncle Musk, can I go with, please?
Although I don't think he ever fulfilled his promise to have a Tesla supercharger in Swift Current yet. So
No, not yet.
I think he made that commitment about 3 or 4 years ago, and I still don't think they're on the network. But
we had looked about putting one in at the bakery when we had the bakery open, but it was just... I started looking into it, and then it seemed complicated, and I just said, fuck it.
Yeah, I do have my I guess my wait list for a Cybertruck. But
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot you were on the.
I don't have the finances to get one, so I'm waiting until they come out with the lower priced models. I can't afford a tri-motor with the insane amount of power that those things have.
So what if we all put our money together and then convince somebody else to buy it?
Done. I'll give up my reservation list. I know there's some rules about that, but yeah, if anybody wants to sponsor this podcast and have us have a Cybertruck,
Buy
by all
us a
means.
Cybertruck.
But to make it fair, we each need a Cybertruck because we're going to do some tests.
Well, mine is getting polished like that one you showed me from fucking
Oh,
SEMA.
mirror finish,
Holy
polished
shit.
stainless, yes.
Yeah,
And can you imagine driving down the number one highway on a nice sunny day in the summer? You're just blinding fucking everybody.
that one got pulled over, got all kinds of hassle because of that exact reason. They got the cops gave them so much shit.
Yeah,
for
because
that.
it's distracting. And,
yeah.
yeah.
But mine's getting body swapped, LS. And, okay, we'll take it a step further. We'll do 2 LSs, one in the front, one in the back, so I can run the wheels properly. We're going to lower it, and we're going to put a custom paint job, airbrush it.
See, I'm thinking the opposite way. I think you take the Tesla platform, you throw a Chevy square body on top of that thing.
Yeah.
Man, now
Yeah,
you've got
so
an
now
ultimate.
we're talking.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Okay, so now we have
Take
3
like
options.
a
so we need
70,
at
a
least
72 K20 Blazer
Uh-huh.
and put that on top of the Cybertruck chassis.
Yeah. Done.
So if anybody out there wants us to do that, you guys are welcome to sponsor the show.
We do
sponsor the
happen to work.
vehicles,
We work at a shop where we have the knowledge and the power and the tools and the capability.
and a South African dude.
And a South African dude, he Johannesburg's the shit out of stuff.
I'm down to cut up a Cybertruck.
Anyways, we're just about an hour into the podcast here, so I think we're gonna pause. We'll take a quick break here and
Tinkle, tinkle.
tinkle, tinkle, and then we'll come back in a few. All right, see you in a bit. All right, everybody, we're back. Everybody got to have what do we got here on the screen? Oh, Ralph Macchio. Jesus fucking Christ.
And the Karate Kid enemy
Fucking
beside
sweep
him.
the leg. What was it, William something?
Talk about people that are riding the coattails of something that's been dead.
Right, like how long can you sit on that fucking...
Wow.
That's insane.
Even Jackie Chan gave up on that stuff.
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Sweep the leg, Johnny. Man. Anyways, we're back from our break. We're still waiting on the Tyson Paul fight here. What are we at? Round
5, I think.
5 or 6 in the second event of the night. So we still got a whole nother, just starting around 6 right now. So we got a whole nother fight after this one before the Paul Tyson fight. So we're going to keep doing what we do. We're going to keep our bullshit going here and try and keep everybody entertained. I don't know. Tim's been a little less punny tonight than normal.
I'm never punny. I'm always quiet. I'm the
Oh,
silent
yeah.
type.
Super quiet. Yeah. You should see the shit I listen to 10 hours a fucking day at work with this guy. My God. I've never wanted to dick punch somebody so many times in one 10-hour shift as I have in the last 4 months.
It's not that bad.
He's going to have to start wearing a cup to work.
I only make jokes when I put my hand with my watch between my legs because then I'm on the clock.
Like I said, 10 hours a day. I deal with this guy's bullshit.
So people have asked me if Tim was short for anything. I said, nope, it's long for T.
I thought you were going to make a height joke here.
It's not enough letters. It will be a short joke.
So off on the break, we were talking about other Trump appointees, and I brought up Joel Salatin, and so doing a little education for Jay and Tim. And Joel Salatin is a regenerative farmer that has written a number of books, essentially against corporate, not against corporate farming, but just showing the ways that you can commercialize regenerative practices. And so for Trump to name him as the new department head of the Agriculture Department of the U.S., I think is something that's very interesting to see where that comes up against big ag and where that's going to lead to, you know, all of these cricket supplements and the processed fake burgers and all that kind of thing. He's really a proponent of natural regenerative ag practices, you know, having 500 chickens on a compost pile and then rotational grazing and all these types of practices could really be transformative. And if you get into the global greenhouse debate, that how these practices sequester carbon. So it's really interesting to see where that might develop. I think it'll be a slow play. I don't know that he's a political heavyweight in terms of being able to work his way around political systems, especially when you're talking about the big money that's in big ag for the likes of Cargill and all of those big multinational corporations, the Monsantos of the world. So you've definitely got somebody who's a powerhouse, but he's coming at it from such a small grassroots level. It'll be interesting to see how that develops over time and combating the corporate interests in that space.
Well, and that's a big thing, right? Like you're talking about the healthy food. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not an organics kind of person, but food you grow yourself in your garden is infinitely better for you over the shit we're buying in the stores. Like you said, the big ag stuff. What are they putting into this stuff to increase their yields, to make bigger carrots? Like, I don't give a shit if the carrot is, half an inch wide, right? Like, if it's fucking nutritious and tastes good, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I actually watched an interesting documentary, and it was all about baby carrots. And so the idea for baby carrots was literally about recycling, because farmers had about 30% of their crop that they couldn't do anything with. And so this process of essentially shaving down these carrots into these little nice snack bite-sized pieces, and taking, big, gross, maldeformed carrots, and you literally chop them up and ground them up, has really transformed into, so to this day, baby carrots make up, I think it's like 30% of the carrot market, which is exactly the percentage of how much carrots were being wasted before that we're underselling. So it's interesting to see, even on a big ag level, how they were able to be efficient and develop a whole market for new product.
Yeah, like, and you're talking about the carbon sequester with the new ag practices and stuff like that. Like, why don't we go back to the 50s and the 60s? And this is, mainly a small town thing, but even in the cities, everybody had a fucking garden, right? Why do I have a quarter acre of grass in my yard? Why isn't that a quarter acre fucking garden that I can grow my own vegetables and feed my family with?
Well, I think what you're actually going to see with the advent of technology is the rise of sort of container greenhouses. So the shipping container guys that do the hydroponic style growing, you're going to be able to reduce. So if oil prices do spike, if we get a World War III and oil prices go to $250 a barrel, you'll see the advent of the adoption of that technology that's already out there in the space. And there's some, the proponents of like vertical farming, but it's taking that technology and you literally plop one of these down in every little small town. You have bigger centers of these in, major urban areas. All of these office buildings that are now going to be vacant because nobody's working downtown, maybe they get transformed into vertical farmers markets.
Yep.
And you actually grow these products in some of these spaces. They've got buildings with, HVAC controls and high electricity outputs. You could literally be growing food in empty downtown office buildings.
Oh yeah, you put up some UV grow lights.
Yeah.
Put in some ventilation, get the water systems hooked up. I mean, shit, yeah.
Have you guys heard anything or looked into the Arabian line?
Oh yes. So it's this whole city that's all in one line of the building, or the wall.
The wall, yeah. Now, see that shit's like, that's way too dystopian for me.
Yeah,
and it's currently under construction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although I've heard they really scaled it back. It was supposed to be
it's a dotted line.
It's a dotted line.
Just a couple dashes.
Yeah. No, I've heard that. The grand ambitions of, I can't remember if it was supposed to be 100 miles long or something.
Yeah, 100, 150 miles or something like that. And and that was it fit right in with that whole 50-minute city thing, right?
Yeah.
Because you had your district basically that you were born in, you worked in, and you fucking died in.
Yeah.
And like that, just, to me, that's way too fucking cyberpunk dystopian Elysium kind of bullshit, right? Like,
but it also puts it at the level of you grow everything, you do everything within that space without affecting everything else around you.
Yeah, that's cool. You can just keep me in the fucking wilds outside the wall. I'll be the fucking running around naked with a big fucking beard and long hair. Well, not long hair. Well, on the sides.
Like the Irish pics with blue paint.
So exactly. I'll go back to the roots.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the reason we moved out of the city is we wanted to be able to grow some of our own food, have the land, just the space. You know, our nearest neighbor is a little over half mile away in any direction. You know, it makes for better neighbors.
Look, if you lived in the city, if you took your nearest neighbor and drove him out a little couple ways away, he'd still have the same distance.
They get a little upset when you do that, though.
Yeah. I think the Saskatoon police were trying that back for a number of decades, and it didn't end up so well for them. So. Or for the people they were transporting.
Yeah, that was not good.
Little Starlight tour.
Yeah,
but
I mean, there is a lot to be said for growing in a small town. And don't get me wrong, because I love living in a small town. I lived in Calgary for 13 years before I came back. And, you know, when my kids were born, I'm just like, this is just too much in the city. You know, prices were stupid. Commuting was stupid. I'd sit in traffic for 45 minutes going home to drive like 10 miles. Shit, I can work in Regina, live in Wolseley, and it's a 45-minute drive with the fucking cruise control set, the music cranked, and you just fucking drive, right?
Well, and that plays into, we were talking about earlier, Cybertruck. So with full self-driving, I think you're actually going to see, you know, everyone's trying to push you into 15-minute cities. This opens up the boundaries. And now you've got suburbia and that rural America. This is an opportunity to revitalize the countryside.
I would fucking love to have a self-driving car. You know, you want to go to fucking Calgary. You just get in, you fucking hit the button and go have a nap, watch a movie, fucking read a book, whatever.
I tried that, but I ended up in a ditch.
Yeah,
Technology
I know.
just
I
wasn't
pulled
there
you
yet.
out, and I don't think there was a book involved with that.
Yeah, but so it's amazing to see what kind of technologies and how quickly it's going to reshape things. If you look at the history of the adoption of the automobile and how you went from cars, or how you went from horse and carriage to cars. And I think that adoption period, I want to say it was like 20 years or something like that. But once full self-driving is, you know, recognized by the regulatory authorities and you're allowed to have it turned on and you can essentially sit back in your car and not have to hold the steering wheel every, 15, 20 seconds.
I'm not going to run over too many cyclists.
I think you're really going to see some huge societal changes, in terms of where people work, where they live. Obviously, taxi cab drivers and the like will be unemployed. The Ubers of the world will be, it's going to fundamentally change industries that have already fundamentally changed other industries.
Yeah, and like I'm not opposed to electric vehicles at all. I've been talking about electric swapping our Jeep for years. I was looking at electric motorbike when I was living in Calgary, just for commuting because it would be so much cheaper. And the torque, the power, everything. Like I love electric vehicles. The only problem is our infrastructure currently isn't built to support them for everybody.
Well, and then so you've got coming up, I think it's on November 27th, Sask Power is having a community outreach for small modular nuclear reactors.
Yeah.
Already seeing the comments online, Saskatchewan's going, the NIMBY route, not in my backyard, which is sort of disappointing because I think that while the technology is cost prohibitive right now, it doesn't mean that it can't come down the cost curve. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No. But is it something that's worthwhile still looking at and investing into? I absolutely think so. And if you have that kind of infrastructure technology, it lends itself to more electric vehicles, just more advent of the electrified society.
I think it would be a bomb. You should blow up. I mean, seriously.
I do like the idea of the nuclear reactors, the small mini ones. I think it's a great thing. The problem is in our province, Sask Power has the monopoly, and if they roll this out, it's going to be great. And they're going to bend us over and they're going to fuck us dry on it because they're going to charge a fortune for it. I mean, so in our new place, wife's working from home. She's got her baking and stuff going on from there. So I got a total of 4 freezers running and 3 fridges. And it's damn near $700 a month in fucking electricity.
Wow.
In a first world country, like that's fucking and I have a full solar system on my house.
Solar to offset
that was in the summer. I was still paying $590 a month. So this winter, when I lose my solar power, I'm going to be paying close to $1,000 a month in fucking electricity.
That's crazy.
Have you seen in China how they're utilizing their space for electricity?
No.
So they currently have walkways, so essentially like your sidewalks, set up with little triangular pads, but the entire side or the entire sidewalk is tiles of those little triangles, set up on like this little absorption mechanism, which draws in all the kinetic energy. And they're actually storing that
as
and
people are
using that
stepping
to
on
help.
it.
Yeah.
I'm getting some vibes from solar frickin' roadways out of this feeling here.
So I said to Ange, what stops somebody from taking that same technology, other than it's very difficult, and putting it and utilizing it in vehicles, putting it in the actual tire setup. So in your actual wheel, so as the wheel turns, it picks up very similar patterns or pads inside the tire. So as each wheel turns, it's pushing those same systems, charging the system, drawing it into the vehicle. It would be difficult to do, but
Oh, you're talking about charging the electric vehicle.
to do that, and if you want a secondary battery, you could use for other things too, sure. But mostly, now, for example, yes, just that. Instead of having to stop off somewhere to have to recharge or have that as a backup.
Now, I don't know how that ties in with the kinetic absorption pads, because if you're using those pads to generate the electricity, the loss of energy from the wheel rolling over it is going to be sort of a
No,
net.
so the design would be inside the wheel itself. So every time the wheel, that section of the wheel touches the road, it pushes that pad and it draws it into the system inside the vehicle. So you're not actually driving on the pad on the road. It's actually connect inside the actual rim itself.
I think you're verging on perpetual motion technology here, because what essentially you're going to do is you're going to create more resistance within that tire.
Mm-hmm.
And that resistance, you're going to need more electrical power in your battery to then overcome that resistance that's in the tire.
That's why you have 4 wheels. You have 4 tons. Then you build a 6x6.
Yeah. So
Like I said, other than it being very difficult.
I do think that there is an opportunity, though, for on highway systems, especially for semi-trucks, being able to recharge through the wireless technology, so they can put wireless charging loops in the road system. And I think they've got some kilometer-long sections that they've looked at developing into this.
Yeah, there was somewhere in Europe they were doing a test section on that. I don't know if it was Germany or...
Might have been the Netherlands, but I've heard that as well.
Netherlands.
Yeah, they're fairly far advanced in terms of their electric vehicle adoption. Especially as it relates to semis, because the challenge there is you want to be able to turn those semis around and get them back on the road. And they draw a ton of power. So, when you look at even the Tesla semi-trucks, the infrastructure that you need, we talk about that being a challenge. You're going to need a small modular reactor at some of these big, large trucking centers. Every Walmart's going to need one in their back parking lot.
Yeah, just to charge your vehicles.
To charge all the, hundreds of semis that come to their...
And that's why I really like what Edison Trucks is doing.
Yes.
Out of BC. I mean, fucking genius, right? We've been running diesel-powered electric trains for decades. So why don't we move that to semi-trucks?
Absolutely.
Right? You got a little 4-cylinder Cat diesel engine that charges your battery banks, that powers your motors, and it just idles. It lasts forever versus, driving an actual, 12-cylinder diesel engine in a semi-truck.
Well, and then you're leveraging the existing infrastructure for all of the fuel stations and whatnot.
Yeah, you're not changing everything at once.
Yeah, and then along that same lines, I know companies like Porsche have developed synthetic fuels. And not just Porsche, but I know they've been funneling some money for scientific research on that. So if you can create a synthetic diesel that you're, powered by small modular nuclear reactors, and then you're using the existing infrastructure to funnel it into hybrid diesel electric, transport trucks and the like, you're leveraging existing technologies, you're adopting new technologies, and you're creating it in a very efficient system.
Well, and it gives you that transition to slowly wean off of it, right?
Yeah.
This is a whole 2030 agenda of no more fucking gas vehicles. It's not going to happen. It doesn't work, especially somewhere like Canada. I mean, the average person drives 20 to 30,000 kilometers a year.
Also, before we get really deep into this topic, for everyone out there, semi, for us normal English-speaking people, is semi-trucks.
No. We're not talking with a weird fucking accent. I suppose you say decal, too.
It depends.
Yeah, you frickin'...
Yes, the transport truck variety.
Or you want us to go British? We'll call them lorries. So would that be better?
I'll call them lorries. Lorries are much smaller.
What are they called in South Africa?
Stolen.
Oh man. Man, you interrupted my train of thought.
Choo choo.
That's the diesel electric train coming right through.
Gone. Yeah, you get that slow transition, right? Because trying to mandate automakers into saying, oh, you can't sell gas powered vehicles, 2030, that's what, 5 fucking years?
Yeah, that timeline is unachievable, and nor is it a good goal to have, because of the disruption you'd create within society, within economic models. You're creating more disruption and destruction, quite frankly, than what is needed. If you just slow down that time frame, so that you're not wasting resources to have that aggressive schedule.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I saw the other day a meme of a train running through the mountains. It's an old coal train, and the meme there says, "Hey, look, electric car fuel."
But it's funny,
Well, and that's
it's
true.
Uh-huh.
but it's still, from an energy efficiency standpoint, to burn coal if you're using state of the art plants like we have here in Saskatchewan. It's actually more efficient to run an electric car off of coal than it is to run a gasoline powered vehicle.
And everything else is run by trains.
So and so some people have that mentality of, oh, it's electric, it's just it's just the left wing that wants to adopt it, or it's just environmentalists. I look at it and go, yeah, I'd love to have a Cybertruck because it's like, I don't know, 1,000 horsepower basically, and
Right, instant torque. I'm
Imagine for the farmers too. I mean, when they start implementing the same technology into the combine harvesters, all that shit, they just program it in the field and say, all right, cool, send it out.
well, and I mean they're already basically at that point. The operator on most common combines nowadays is just there in case something goes wrong.
Yeah. The only guy that really matters is the cart driver.
Cart driver,
Yeah.
100% cart
Yeah,
driver, man.
boom.
We keep
a
that
little
shit
biased
rolling,
there.
man.
A little biased.
What's really screwed up about that is our job will be replaced so quickly.
Well, the problem is you foreigners came in and took my fucking job from car.
I didn't take anything. I wasn't working. I was just hanging out.
Well, and speaking of farm technology, I mean, I'm a big proponent of the Barn Talk podcast, and their vision is really, instead of having these big, massive tractors and big, massive combines and 140-foot sprayers, make it small, make it automated driving technology, which is almost there right now. So I think we're only a couple of years away from, instead of having one large piece of equipment, like for a tractor, sprayer, combine, is having 3 or 4 smaller ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then if one does get has a breakdown, you're still doing it 75% of what you need to get done for harvest, or for what you're doing for seeding or for spraying.
Yeah.
Combine harvester as the mothership. Then you have a grain cart that runs on its own, that runs with it.
And that dumps
can
into a
butter
Vale
off.
Grain Giant.
And
Thank you for
sprayers-
sponsoring us, Ale.
And for sprayers, you can have drones that come off.
So at the Canada in Motion Ag Show, they actually had the drone sprayer guys there. And I think they've got, I want to say it's 40, I'm not sure if it was 40-gallon tank. So, I mean, they're already getting to be fairly decent size.
You can get
And
swarms.
well, and exactly. And if you can automate the not refueling, but the refilling process, so they could land at a docking station and it refills up the tank. I don't know. I think there's a lot of farmers out there that would, rather not be that close to the chemicals, big ag,
sure.
out in the
And-
field, and just sit back and control it and monitor. And
Farmers can all team up too, so they could essentially buy into or rent a swarm together as a collective of farmers, and that whole lot can actually then go up and basically do all the spraying and everything they need to do on the multiple fields all in the same area if they're willing to work
See,
together.
and that's like, in theory, that sounds great, just like communism.
I know everything I say. Does.
yeah, you talk about getting a bunch of farmers that all want to agree on a certain specific technology base working together.
That's,
I think self-driving cars would be an easier feat.
like, I love Star Trek too, but that shit just ain't gonna happen. As long as humans are involved, it's not gonna happen. We're too greedy.
Well, and then you're coordinating schedules and timing, and hey, I got to get this field sprayed today. Well, so do I. When that what happens, right?
Well, that's where that if you're investing into a swarm, they all can essentially be sprayed within a short amount of time and with multiple fields at the same time.
Yeah.
So if it's too expensive for one farmer to do it himself, a couple or three of them can go in together, and they essentially paying that. So they're not running the tractors, they're not spending all the extra money on the fuel, no wear and tear and all that stuff. They're essentially paying like a Netflix tariff.
Subscription fee.
Yeah, exactly. And essentially, for lack of a better term, the government or the municipality or whatever it is owns it, but you pay into it, they go and they sprinkle whatever they want to, put their chemicals in, their little sugars and all their things, and go away.
That way you can own nothing and be happy.
Exactly.
There it is.
Full
there
circle. Full circle. On that same idea of automated tractors is, I think, getting away from the chemicals. So the Monsantos of the world probably aren't going to be sponsoring this podcast after this, but the idea of mechanical extraction or electrolysis or flamethrowers, but they have these mechanized implements that are self-driving that literally drive across a field. They have AI technology that looks at the cameras, and then they either mechanically extract or electrocute or flamethrow the weeds when they're still small little seedlings.
So there's, and I can bring this up because I actually just got cast for a commercial for Redicop out of Melville. And their new unit they're promoting is their seed control unit. So basically what it is an attachment that goes on the back of your combine and collects the chaff that's coming out of the combine and goes through it again and removes, 98, 99% of the seeds from the weeds before they even hit the fucking ground again.
That's interesting. So it's like, going through your tailings ponds if you're gold mining.
Exactly. And picking up those little kernels that you fucking missed and...
Secondary processing. That's interesting.
But instead of collecting the canola, for example, they're collecting the kochia seeds and all that stuff before they're hitting the ground. So then they're not even coming back next year because they were never seeded.
And then if they take that and they take the drone and then they go and take it to a farmer that didn't pay his tariff and they
just dump it on his ground.
Yeah, biological warfare for the weed seed.
Hashtag just saying.
Well, that'll be the new form of international warfare. Okay, let's go throw a whole bunch of kosher all over.
Just fuck all your crops up.
Yeah.
We're in here, round 12 of the Barrios Ramos fight.
Well, they've earned every penny.
Advance has been giving us commentary on this. He's really excited about this fight. He says it's been a great fight. I haven't really watched, but
they're gonna have to hurry up with this because I think Martasson's bedtime is soon.
Yeah, he's 58. It's getting pretty late for that guy.
Oh. I think he made it a half hour before he came out.
Especially because this is Eastern time, too. So we're fucking, 9 o'clock here? So that's 10 o'clock Eastern right now?
It's already after Matlock.
Yeah. Yeah, man, he should be tucked into bed by now.
It's the late show.
Of course, if it's AI, it doesn't matter. He's not actually there anyways.
Yeah, his stunt double's just sitting there in the crowd.
He's a drone with a synthetic cover.
It's actually Elon's robots that he's got out there.
Took a while to get the the lift right, but he was ready.
Yeah, can AI pick up that shit? Can they do
Oh, I'd so love to see an AI do lift.
Affectations. Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think we're definitely at an interesting time in society's development kind of thing in terms of the way technology is going.
Especially
it does beg the question that, like, you look at the advances that we've had since 1850,
or even more recent than that, 1900.
Yeah, right? to now. Well, I mean, even myself, right?
Yeah.
I'm Gen Xer. I was born in '76. I went through having a party line at our farm for when phone calls came in, right? To having the collective knowledge of the world in a freaking device that I carry around in my pocket.
To not even wanting to call anybody because you just want them to text you instead.
Yeah, exactly. There's no social skills anymore. That's actually one of our prime drivers for wanting to do this podcast, was to have that art of conversation, right? We're literally sitting around having a conversation, right? And
just phoning it in.
Nobody does that anymore. You get a group of people together and everybody sits around the table on their fucking phones.
Yeah.
I love the idea of, you have a group of people, you go out somewhere to a restaurant or whatever, and every phone goes in the fucking middle of the pile, and the first person that touches their phone
gets to go home,
pays the bill. No,
that's what I meant.
Yeah. if you went home with the waitress, your wife is following you. It's not going to be
Obviously,
pretty.
somebody's gotta
It's
drive.
not
That can
going
be
to
a fun
pretty.
night. Depends how she swings.
I'm pretty sure she's like my wife, and it's somebody's going to get hurt real bad.
The one year my wife and I were busy chatting about, if you could have what do you call that?
A hall pass.
Yes, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Or what it would be, or a threesome and this type of thing. And I can't remember who I came up with. And she's like, "Where would I be?" I'm like, "You'd be behind the camera."
Just a word of advice when they ask you who your hall pass is: don't say any of their friends.
It better be a far off celebrity.
Yeah, this better be
that
a
has no
zero
chance of actually happening.
It was funny. We actually, my wife and I, we had this conversation, and I asked her who hers would be, right? And she's like, "Oh, Ryan Reynolds." I'm like, funny enough, my number one, Ryan Reynolds. Mind you, Henry Cavill is a close second.
I thought you didn't like Superman.
I don't like Superman, but I mean, anybody that we could, have some fun and then play some Warhammer. I mean,
What's his version of Warhammer?
I think you're well aware. So hopefully everybody's enjoying our podcast. We're just about 2 hours. Well, okay, no, hour and a half. All right, we're doing all right.
We're 3 hours in.
We're
editing is a
going to be
little-
like close to 4 hours by the time this freaking Tyson fight actually goes on.
We did have a lengthy break with some refills, so that was
That's true.
that was well earned.
That's true.
We did try to send Elon Musk a message, see if he would join us, but he said no weed, no go.
We'll
Oh,
keep
I
you
got weed.
we'll keep you updated of when
mean-
he's going to join the podcast.
Allegedly. Actually, no, it's legal in Canada. Yeah, I got weed.
Hashtag
For those of you in America,
depends on the state.
well, I guess Colorado and Washington are okay. California is pretty easy to get a medical license.
Texas seems to be pretty decent.
I was actually saying that, or I was hearing some talk that they figure probably in the next couple of years, like while Trump's in, that they're just going to fucking do away with that and just make it legal.
It's legal in South Africa for personal home use, but if you have, a trunk full and
It's like distilling.
Yeah.
Personal use, I'm good to go.
And
I mean,
all
that is, like, as shitty as our country is, I do love the fact that I can grow weed and I can make my own booze.
the essentials.
Uh-huh.
And, well, I mean, it all comes down to, although I can't even, have my own dairy cows and sell that milk.
Right?
So it's
How stupid is that?
Weed is legal, but I would go to jail for more time. I think it's at least a 2-year sentence and a $50,000 fine if I wanted to sell
If you
milk
sold
from my cow.
unpasteurized,
Unpasteurized,
uncontracted milk.
Yeah. Never mind having the dairy cartel come down on you.
I mean, that ice cream I found, that was from fucking prime fucking ice cream.
Yeah. The Jersey milk, I mean, the fat content is just so smooth and so rich. It was unbelievable. So shout out to my cow ice cream. Yeah.
Thanks, ice cream. Keep it up.
Yeah.
How
We'll
did
give
you
you
come
the
up-
good hay today.
How did you come up with the name? Is that every time you go and milk it, it's like, ah!
No, actually, the family that we purchased her off of, the little kids had named her that. So we just decided to keep it.
I like it. It's a
Well, I mean, it
repetitive
makes
song.
sense. I mean, the mozzarella that you get from that, fuck me. That is some good fucking cheese.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite, and you know what? And you turn that into a homemade pizza, and you throw it on some Tilly
Some
sourdough
homemade
pizza bread.
fucking,
And it's just a combination of getting back to the roots of homegrown food. It's just some of the essentials of what life used to be like, even 60, 70 years ago, prior to the really big advent of grocery stores.
Yeah.
People would grow their own food in the communities. They would sell it at local farmers markets. They'd sell it at local shops. But you didn't have the Walmarts of the world, importing, produce that could be grown here all the way from Mexico.
yeah. Well, and the chemicals and shit they put in it, right? I mean, you and I, we're not small dudes. And the biggest reason why we're not small dudes isn't so much because of what we eat. It's because of what's put into the food that we eat.
Well, it's how much of I eat. I'll admit that. But you're right. The chemicals, they change the microbiome of your bodies. It kills off the good bacteria. It changes your metabolism with all of the different kinds of chemicals. So there's so many different factors.
And your hormones too.
And your hormones, absolutely.
Yeah.
The fact that soy is such a big component in many products that you don't even necessarily realize. And it changes, for men especially, it raises your estrogen levels, lowers testosterone.
Yeah. And then you start making flags with all kinds of colors. And, hey, I identify as pending.
And just the changes that our system of how we used to get food. And you think about really how many generations did it take from a population that could have been fairly self-reliant. So you look at the people around, World War II, the greatest generation, if you're going by that term. But you look from that generation till in the 70s and the 80s. I mean, those populations could have survived a global catastrophe of power grids going down.
Oh yeah,
and you wouldn't have had the absolute devastation that you'd have today. I mean, I think some of the estimates out of the U.S. were 90 to 95% of the population would be dead within a year if you had a large, massive EMP attack or something to that scale, whether it's natural disaster or whatnot.
you get an X10 or higher solar flare that cooks
well,
the
they had
solar
it
grid.
that it happened
or the
once.
electrical grid.
The Carrington event.
The Carrington event,
yes.
Yeah.
And it shut everything down, and they survived.
But because they knew how to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
It
Nowadays,
goes down now.
people don't. Right? It's rioting. It's, everybody looting the fucking Walmarts. And I bet you if something like that happened and you went to the grocery stores, everything would be gone except fucking flour, sugar, and salt. Because nobody knows how to fucking cook anything anymore.
Yes, the ingredient families.
Right? Canned goods would be gone. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you give my wife and I, a reasonable amount of ammunition, a rifle, and flour.
You'll catch anybody coming out the store with those.
And a couple barrels of vinegar for pickling.
I can make it.
Yeah, you can make it. That's right, too.
With the still, I can make it.
Yeah.
Right? And, we can survive.
Mm-hmm.
But most people aren't, nobody knows how to make bannock anymore.
So good.
That's why I don't prep, because you guys are down the road.
And you can try.
Yeah.
We had this discussion last week. I think if you break into my house and you think I'm not able to shoot your ass, I will fucking do it.
You're quick, but are you faster than a bullet?
We had the discussion, right? Nobody wants to fight the fat, angry, naked guy.
Yeah, but
Especially if he's carrying a gun.
what about the other fat angry naked guy?
Has he got a gun too?
Well,
Not that gun. Not that gun.
he might come in loaded.
As long as he still got the load and hasn't come out.
But getting back to the topic of grocery stores and vertical farming and the more localized production of food, I mean, you look at sort of the greenhouse technology. So one of the things, there's a gentleman out in Alberta, in Olds, Alberta, that has these essentially long greenhouses that are insulated on one side. They're at the right optimal angles to capture the sunlight. And he's growing tomatoes in Olds, Alberta in February.
Yeah.
So it just... so these are everywhere in China. Mm-hmm. And they've really adapted to very simple technologies. You don't have to have a huge amount of infrastructure for electricity. I mean, he's got, I think, small heaters in there, but they have insulated blankets that roll down overnight.
Yep.
They roll them back in the morning once the solar gain is enough to get some heat back into that building.
Yeah, keep that thermal mass at the back of the building.
Or similarly here in Saskatchewan, you've got companies like Arcopia, he's doing it on a personal scale level, but he's growing bananas in Saskatchewan. He's got fig trees. But again, it's a technology that realistically, you're talking about building a pole barn with some extra insulation, and it's some thought and some design process. I mean, if you look at commercializing these on a larger scale, you'd be able to have these types of facilities in local communities that could commercially grow foods.
Yeah.
Now, right now, because oil is still relatively cheap, these don't make as much sense. But, again, if we get into a World War III scenario and oil hits $250 a barrel,
all of a sudden it's a little more cost effective.
All of a sudden, you know what? We should be looking at implementing these types of scenarios So you reduce your transportation costs, and instead those costs go to the farmers that's growing it and into the localized distribution to make it more efficient to get that to the consumer. You're cutting out the Cargills of the world, and you're having more small to medium-sized businesses that are doing the development of this technology.
Well, yeah, because the small to medium-sized businesses actually want to see people be healthy and successful. You know, the big corporations, they don't give a shit. They care about their shareholders and their bottom line, right? That's all they give a shit about.
Yeah.
You know, you go back to the small town stuff, you get rid of the government, you go back to a bartering system. Hey, I can grow a weed and I can fucking make you booze. You got a fucking half a cow, I can trade you for, you know, whatever.
Well, and this leads on to the Bitcoin discussion, because I think a barter system is still limited by the ease of trade. I mean, even if you look at companies like Trade Bank, essentially you get a point system. So you put goods into the network, you get points on their system, and you get to claw them back for other resources that you're buying with those points. I mean, Bitcoin essentially, to some degree, is a similar kind of a structure. But governments don't like it because obviously the taxing of it becomes a challenge, which is why they're looking at developing central digital currencies, which they then can tax and control. So my apprehension with Bitcoin is that theoretically they could crack the code and then they have essentially all the records of every transaction. Like it's not that easy, but I mean with AI and supercomputers, like they're not that far away from.
I mean, maybe with quantum computing, maybe a risk, but I mean, those keys on the encryption of the Bitcoin stuff it's like fucking next level. Like you're easier to hack the Pentagon's fucking mainframes than cracking the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yes, I will give you that. I just think it's, to me, with the advent or with how quickly technology progresses, to me it's a matter of time. I mean, I still have some Bitcoin because I think it's important to have a variety of distributed resources. So, you know, a little bit of gold, a little bit of silver, some Bitcoin, and then actual physical resources, you know, stockpiles of food, of ammunition, of equipment, of tools. Yeah. You know, all of these things are important to, you know, if things go bad, you've got some resources to support your family, things that you can trade off. And again, you look at the resiliency of that greatest generation and where we are today, we are such a fragile society. Yeah. And I think it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of just a mindset change to get people to start being more resilient, to thinking about these development, which I actually think leads to a better quality of life.
It does. 100%. 100%. So we're coming up in here. We're about an hour and 40 into the podcast. I've just gotten word that our friend Advance here is going to be popping in for a little bit for the last couple fights. So we're going to take another break here, and we will come back in a few, and we'll continue on. All right, everybody, we're back. We have our good friend. We're finally 4 small town guys again. Advance is back in the house here.
Hey, everybody.
He's been keeping us up to date on the first 2 fights of the night, giving us some commentary while we were busy filling ears with everything except boxing.
They were good fights. You guys missed out. That's all I'm going to say. Seriously.
We've had some great conversations, though, so it's all worth it.
And then, unfortunately, now we're into the
buffering stage.
Whole Netflix is down fucking realm of the evening. I'd like to say we didn't see this coming, but
I'm not going to lie. I low-key regret leaving home because I'm convinced I would have been able to see it there. I wouldn't have had any problems if it wasn't for you 3.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that the internet in rural Saskatchewan is so much more
better.
reliable.
Yeah. I mean, Reuters International, Yahoo Finance, Fox, they're all posting, Netflix down for thousands and millions of people. But, hey, Vance's internet connection through Xplornet
still
solid.
Good.
Watch, we're all going to get a whole bunch of emails saying, please send Vance home. We need the internet back up.
Yeah, exactly. But, no, they were, honestly, though, I'm not going to lie, they were solid fights. That second fight, especially, one of the best fights I've seen in a long time. The first one with a freaking social media guy versus an actual boxer. The fact that it went the distance was impressive. You could tell that the social media guy's Nunez or whatever the hell his name is, definitely outclassed. Within the first 30 seconds, you could tell that the only way he could win is a lucky shot. But one thing I did learn, and I got to respect, he can take a punch. He definitely can. At one point, I actually texted to you guys. He's not even being a good sparring partner at this point because that's all he was doing was taking punches, it seemed.
Just taking shots.
I
Yeah.
was going to say that's part of about being online anyways. You get as many hits as you can and run with it.
Yeah. Not that kind of hits, but still. Yeah. But the Barrios Ramos fight, the second one, man, whoo, some of that stuff that went on, man. Like, Barrios knocked him down in the very first round, like halfway through, and I was like, ooh, this is not going to be as good of a fight. Like, welterweight fights, awesome fights. They got power.
Usually they're fast, they're quick, yeah.
There's a lot more movement, a lot more things going on.
Yeah. Like, they're an exciting, fun fight to watch, and I was geeked up. I know I texted you guys, too. I said, this is going to be the best fight of the night, probably, right?
Just for those of our listeners that aren't into sports, we've got the sports section coming up here, so I'll let you know what the timestamp is. Skip to if we're done.
And now the weather.
We literally had to put a felt cloth on the table because the phone was vibrating from Vance's boxing updates.
But they were good. They were good, man. I've been punched in the ring a few times, so this is why I enjoy it,
Yeah,
right?
that's why usually I don't bend that way in a bar.
Not that ring, buddy. A little bit higher, a little bit square, a little less brown in Regina Boxing Club because it's mostly white people back then. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, yeah. Well, I mean, we could talk about conspiracies.
Well, that's what we've been talking about for the
I
last
assume.
hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And we've had some good conversations tonight. I'm happy with how this has been going. So
Quite a variety of topics. It's been interesting. And I was just commenting before the break here about the bread and circuses. We're talking about, like, is this a tool for manipulation of the masses or to keep us placated? So it's interesting that the masses tuned in such large volumes that even the juggernaut of technology that Netflix is couldn't handle what I'm assuming is got to be hundreds of millions of people tuning in tonight for this.
Yeah, Netflix just sold out the largest Coliseum in the world and then turned off the lights and didn't let anybody watch.
Yeah.
So this is arguably proof that we don't live in a synthesized world. Like, it's real, right? Because if the Netflix servers can't handle our artificial attention, how can the Matrixes, right?
Or it was planned.
But what is real?
Yeah, well, there you go. What is real is all that matters with your interaction with reality. And the rest of it, it's fun to talk about fluff, but...
Well, but the same thing. What's interaction other than thoughts?
Well, he's 100%, right? And it's just like touching
Just an
stuff.
exchange of energy.
At the quantum level, if you believe quantum physics.
Yeah, we
right?
actually talked about this earlier today.
Theoretically, you're not actually touching that shit.
It's the
right?
magnetic fields.
But does it matter, right? Because your entire nervous system, if in fact it is a nervous system, is all electromagnetic pulses anyway.
it's
So
very
if you've got
nice,
electromagnetic interacting with electromagnetic, that's as real as it gets.
That's like Cypher said in The Matrix, right? He was talking to Agent Smith. My brain knows the steak isn't real, but the Matrix tells me it's delicious, it's juicy,
I was watching
tastes
this the
great.
other day.
And you know what I've learned? Ignorance is bliss.
100%, right? I mean, you can get yourself all worked up and angry, but you're not going to be able to prove it until somebody walks up to you with a red pill.
Yeah.
And not in the political Trump sense either, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, in the Matrix sense.
Yeah.
Now I'm craving a
exactly.
steak. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah, steak and my ice cream. That's great.
So I have a question now going upon that quantum theory. So everything you touch, technically you're not touching, so it's not real. What if you have a pedophile, right?
I knew this was going somewhere bad.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Put your hands up. What? Just kidding.
Well, so that if you shoot the pedophile, you're not actually shooting him because the bullet didn't actually touch him.
Exactly.
It
It vibrated him.
It's not actually murder, it's a cessation of energy. It's like turning off a switch.
Yeah, or the Netflix servers.
Somebody could turn those back on anytime now.
Well, I've got the fight kind of going on my phone in front of me right now. The second one, I'm rewatching it already. That's how good of a fight it was. Honestly.
That's because you
was
don't have
good
a choice.
fight.
We
Well,
can't watch the third fight because it's, not playing.
It's probably done by now, honestly. Mind you, though, this is part 2. And if the first one was good enough that they put it on this card,
Oh, this
it's
is going a
probably
full
gonna
10
be a
rounds.
solid fight, actually.
Yeah, I would say
right?
it's a full 10-round fight.
So,
I honestly believe at this point, Netflix has gotten enough feedback that they're probably delaying this in the stadium right now.
Yeah. until they can get things figured out.
I mean, because no offense, what is it, 100,000 people in that stadium? Or I don't know.
versus like 100 million trying to watch.
Exactly. Sorry, people, you got to wait. Go buy some more beer and concessions and merchandise while you're here, and we're going to make you wait while we get the service fixed.
Live.
So
We're just in a
basically-
commercial break right now, people.
So basically, Jerry Jones is going to be making more money off of this.
Yeah.
Once again, fuck Jerry Jones and fuck the Cowboys. That's what all I'm going to say.
And you don't think it's planned by the super elite?
There you
Let's
go.
go down the rabbit hole. I mean,
This
they
is
planned
all
this buffer.
scripted.
Yeah.
They planned the buffer so everybody can sit there. All right, come on, log in. Let's wait for everyone to get caught up. Let's get home.
Yeah.
Shit, it's loading. Down. Okay, we'll wait.
Yeah.
Longer time sitting on Netflix. That really hurts
True.
your numbers.
So you guys, the last time we got together, you guys randomly brought up a podcast called The Y Files.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And I have never in my life heard of that before.
Yeah.
Never seen it, never saw a YouTube clip, and never came across my Spotify. And I've got my enough weird stuff,
Yeah.
right, on my Spotify.
Your phone was listening, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%. Next thing you know, the next morning, I finish reading my scripture. I start, just doing my flicking before I go downstairs to do some, I think it was a weight day. Anyway, and what comes up? A short on the Y Files. What the hell is this goldfish? Boom.
Oh, hecklefish.
The YouTube algorithms at work.
That was, and ever since, like, it's an addictive thing. It really is.
Yeah.
So, some of his stuff is really interesting. Some of his stuff is really stupid. But I mean, that's what all of the
What I
good
love the
podcasts
best
are.
about most of his videos is he goes through, tells the story, right, as if it was real, and then he gets to the end and he's like, but is it real?
Yes.
Right? And then he goes back and debunks as much as possible.
Well, I would listen to the one where he's like 4 that made me a believer, and he's got a few of these. It looks like, right?
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool, right? Because you get used to that. I do it when I'm like running. I'm listening to it, or when I'm lifting weights, or whatever it was that I happen to be doing in my downtime.
Yeah.
Doing chores. That's another one, right? Anywho's, most of them do follow that pattern. Like, here it all is, and it sounds super compelling until he breaks down the evidence. But then he's got those few that loop you in. He says, "But these ones made me a believer." That's pretty cool. That's
his one about the moon, like whether the moon is real.
yeah. I listened to that one. Yeah,
And that
Hollow
was
Moon?
one of those ones where he did a compilation. He's done a few compilation videos now, where he just brings a bunch of his old videos back together and pieces them together. And he's talking about the moon video one, and he's like, "Yeah, I got these requests for like, is the moon real?" kind of thing. I'm like, "Yeah, this will be fun. I'll read this. It'll be a great laugh. It'll be fun." I'm not so sure if the moon is real anymore.
Death Star.
Cheat.
So yesterday, so we had a big windstorm a couple of days ago, right? And I was cleaning up the yard, and I listened to the moon one, right? And then I don't know if it was the next one or a little bit later. It came on and it was the is it the Black Knight satellite? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Right afterwards. And so they're saying that the moon might have been brought here 30,000 years ago or whatever it was, and it's a spacecraft for the Anunnaki, blah, 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 right? And then later on, while I'm still cleaning up the yard, I think I was picking up glass. A storm window that's been on my house for years blew off in that wind, right? It's like a 120-plus-year-old storm window that died from that wind, which kind of sucked.
Yeah.
So you had a glass shattering moment.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Anywho's, so then this Black Knight satellite comes on, and I don't think they're chronologically back to back on his thing. It just kind of happened to come across my feed that way. That was pretty cool. Like, because they just mesh so well.
Yeah.
With,
Yeah.
So I haven't seen this Y Files, but did he talk about the gravitational pull and the tides and the
Yes.
Okay.
He does all
And
of
so how does he, like, is it just that massive of a moon structure? Like, because to me, a spacecraft is going to have a lot of hollow space as opposed to rock, which is dense and...
Yeah, with the gravitational fields. And
I know, according to one of the theories, is he goes way back to where there's cultures and African cultures, or hi, I come from there.
You can talk about it because you're from there.
Yeah, I'm just wasn't outside for as long. But so he talks about the theory of they still have the tribes and the cultures that say that there was a time where there was no moon, and they have that in South America too. Same thing. There was no moon, and eventually it came to be, and we started getting tides and different seasons and oceans and oceans moving and that type of thing. So it goes quite a ways back, thinking about exactly that theory.
And I'm assuming from there he led into the mathematics of how the moon is at the perfect distance for eclipses. And did he go down that path?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because, I mean,
But also
if
the
you're
moon-
talking about a brought moon theory, that would be one is like in terms of perfect placement, size ratio.
So I want to step that back though. Sorry for cutting you
Yeah, go
off.
for it.
It isn't perfect placement. And it's changed over the years. It is not a perfect placement. Everybody has that conspiracy theory that it's perfect. It's not. Sometimes it is if you're standing in the exact right spot. But even then, it doesn't cover it because you still have the corona that's exposed.
yeah.
Corona, thank you. Like the beer. It's still exposed. So it's not perfect. Yes. Yes, that too. And now we're canceled. Thanks. Anyway,
We were canceled a long time ago.
But I mean, in terms of the ratio of the distance between the sun, it was a factor 400, I think, was the number that was thrown around in some of the stuff that I've seen. I mean, you're also talking about something on those kinds of scales. I mean, does it have to be perfect down to the millimeter, or is close good enough?
Yeah,
Don't
what,
let the
what defines perfect?
It has to be millimeters. It can't be freaking fractions like you people have.
It's because you don't know math. This isn't a me problem.
he knows one version of math. He's
I know
a
the
small-minded
real version of
person.
math. I know the version of math that has it to a decimal point.
You should have seen him panic.
It might be above the line. It might be below the line. No.
You should have seen him panic on Thursday when I asked him what half of 4 and 7/8 was.
A drinking moment.
2.5 minus a 16th.
It's not that hard. Come on. Simple, basic math, people.
Part of the Y-Files, what he does in that same episode is he does exactly that. He says that it was perfect placement to a certain point, but every year the moon is moving further and further away. So it goes both ways. There's a lot to that theory.
Shout out to AJ, by the way, if you want to collaborate, we're here.
Hi, AJ.
Hecklefish too.
Yeah.
Hecklefist.
That's a little different one. Hecklefish.
Yeah, but I mean, I get the point of, if it's not perfect, how perfect is it and everything else like that. But everybody throws that around as proof of whether it's the firmament or proof of whatever. There's a million different things. The reality is it's not truly perfect, right?
Yeah.
I personally think that if you have the capacity to come 4, 5, 6 million light years, whatever it happens to be, in that round ball, you got the capacity to make it so it's never going anywhere and it's going to be perfect, right?
That's true.
That's my opinion.
What if it's
Well-
reached the end of its lifespan and is now currently just like, floating away because everything else inside is dead? And
Yeah, maybe the people maintaining it have...
You would need
died.
external inputs of energy in order to maintain its orbit over time.
Not
If you're talking-
necessarily.
So we're barely advanced monkeys that
Yeah.
have managed to split the atom in the last 100 years, right? Not even.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about races. If this, in fact, is what it is, right? We're talking about intergalactic races that existed for thousands of years, if not millennia. I think they've had time to make it sophisticated enough that they don't have the same problems that, say, our manufacturers do with insisting upon the profit margin, right? They're not going to have a designed obsolescence on something that travels multiple light years, right?
Or if you're thinking about the brought moon theory, was it brought here? Because the moon has been an excellent shield at essentially absorbing all of the asteroids that would normally hit the Earth. So in that scenario where these benevolent extraterrestrials, okay, we're going to bring the moon here, plop it here, it'll serve them good enough to take out the asteroids within their planetary
They're like,
realm.
we really love those fucking dinosaurs, and the asteroid killed them, so we're not having that shit happen again.
Well,
See,
exactly.
it
Let's
might be
protect
an
this monkey
observatory.
species and see how it goes from there. So it could have been a benevolent act. They bring the moon here. Okay, that'll get them good enough. It'll clear enough, debris out of their planetary orbit. and then they should be good in a good course, and we'll catch up with them in a couple million years or a couple 100,000 years.
What about the Jurassic Park theory? This is my own.
Oh, that we're a planet. Yeah.
Okay, so
It's a fresh.
what
theory.
if the moon is like at the Jurassic Park? They have all these windows looking down upon the dinosaurs chilling.
Yeah.
But what happened to Jurassic Park? Everyone fucked off. The place died. There's still that window sitting there.
Yeah.
Is it being used? Maybe not.
Is lunar rock transparent? I guess they can see through it if they're that advanced to bring a moon here.
Well, they might just be using different kinds of technologies, or it's like a satellite. They're sitting up there. They can still take up readings and all that kind of thing. Part of the theory about the moon being a base and all that stuff is that the dust on the surface is older than the dust in the sand and the rock below the surface, and all the craters are only up to a certain depth. None of them go deeper. Playing to the idea of there's a metallic or a solid
some sort of a barrier
from
that's
underneath,
stopping it?
or it was mined from inside, dunked out, and
What about the blue lights on the moon?
that's Chris Pratt just putting on a flashlight.
So also, okay, so when you know that when there is dust particles in grain bins or silos or whatever, right? They build up a massive amount of static electricity. And it's very easy to discharge static electricity in an oxygen-rich environment. You know, it's a lot easier for electrons to move. You put that in a vacuum, right? And the space dust on the moon is even more fine, right?
Yeah.
It's still going to build up static electricity, but the capacity to discharge is so much lower on the moon. So it's just going to be working like a capacitor for growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And eventually it's going to be enough to release. And that's going to result in a very long sustained discharge. And that's probably the blue lights. It's just a discharge of static electricity. Because I'm boring.
So that's where Dr. Evil came up with.
What causes the friction between the dust on the moon to generate said static electricity?
So I think that would be even just micrometeorites hitting the surface of the moon. We have micrometeorites hitting the Earth all the time.
Yeah.
As those micrometeorites hit, the particles are touching each other and they're creating that static electricity.
That's one aspect of it, right? So, but we also have a thick atmosphere between us and outer space, right? And we've got the radiation belt and all the ionosphere, all those things that protect us from solar radiation that the moon doesn't. So going through all of those layers here, we can still create things called solar panels, where just that little bit of sun hitting it kicks out the electron and makes it move along there. The moon still gets sunlight. So that could also, not only what you're saying, the micrometeors, but I actually think just direct sunlight with nothing between it. You're
And the
gonna have
gamma rays and the
beta,
X-rays.
gamma,
Solar flares
you
too.
name it. Hammering into it over and over and over. It's got to discharge at some point.
That's why that flag of the moon is just white and disintegrated by now.
It's long gone.
And that's where Dr. Evil is saying to Mini-Me, stop humping the laser. It's not that one he's talking about. It's the big moon up there. Somebody
So looking over at the next Netflix page, we're still going through reboots and
Still fighting.
Or
with
if
buffering.
if you rewound your 30 seconds left in the 12th round of the awesome fight when these guys both try to win it, and it's pretty amazing. I strongly recommend the rewatch of this. So, decrease your productivity, watch boxing. It's fun stuff.
I would love to watch boxing. We're trying to watch it. We haven't been able to watch boxing.
bread and circuses, and our bread is just liquid form.
It is a great fight though. When the guy gets knocked down in the first round and he's still against the champion, takes it to a split decision draw, you gotta respect that dude's fight capacities, right? So
Lynx Networks. Trust us, you do not need to reset your router tonight. This one's on Netflix.
And you think about what preparations they would have put in place. Like, they obviously had numbers that they were anticipating for viewership.
Their initial engineering should have been, okay, how many subscribers do we have? 100 million. Right? Now we take that at least by another 50%, and our servers need to handle 150 million concurrent users.
Yeah. All in the same street feed.
Yeah, at the same fucking time.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet, though, that if you went and tried to restart it now and then rewound it way, way, way back, we'd probably be able to watch the third fight.
I think you'd get to this point and you'd be fucked.
Well, I think Vance just wants to watch the third fight again.
I
It's
know.
that
He just
good.
wants
It
to
was
watch
that-
that
no,
good,
that's
but-
the second fight.
Oh.
I never got to see the third one because I came to visit you assholes.
And blamed the whole Netflix fiasco on Vance coming into town.
Way to go, Vance. Yeah, so if anybody's upset about this,
His email is.
There you go.
not my fault at fuckoff.com.
I actually tried advancing it to that, and it didn't work out. So
Oh,
on
advance,
my
huh?
phone. Yeah, exactly.
Advance is trying to advance.
Yeah. And now I've got the black screen of death.
Theory debunked.
Yeah. That makes me sad. I wanted to see chicks fighting.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
I mean, we can just go up to the pump or, well, not the pump anymore, but Gabos maybe?
Is it still Gabos?
Stabos?
Stabos?
I think so. I think I drove by there and it was still alive.
I mean, we can go to North Duty. And, I mean, we'll be able to see people fighting. That's,
Well,
So
even the-
it's appropriate to see fights at Gabos because honestly, that was, since we're in a boxing mode tonight, the floor above so you go down that building into
Yeah.
the basement to get into Gabos, right? Just above that was where Regina Boxing Club used to be.
oh, it isn't.
Yeah. So yeah, so which it was honestly it was a lot of fun. That is one of the favorite things most exhausting, but favorite things I've ever done for training in my life was boxing. It was a blast.
Oh, yeah.
I sucked.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
Like
I miss the MMA sparring. Like, not even the sparring, just like the just exhausting your fucking self.
yeah.
Right? Like, but it was different. Like, you put me on a treadmill, no, fuck that. But we go out and we start doing fucking wind sprints and then doing 2 minutes on the groundwork and wrestling and stuff. It's like, fuck yeah, let's do that. Cardio? No, fuck that.
Even just the crab walks across the mat and warm up.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it's similar on sports. You talked about earlier, 2-minute level of exhaustion, dragon boating. You would do your sprints, which, if you're really good at it, you're into the 50-second range. It is 50 seconds of, I don't know if you can burn any more calories than you do during that, because you're using legs, abs, core, full out. It's a intensive exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be able to go for like 1:30. Like, I mean, at the end of that 200-meter sprint, it is absolutely unbelievable how you get 20 people working together that are just putting that much energy through their paddle into the water. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So last year, me and a couple of buddies, we did a gravel standard triathlon. So we swam 1.5 kilometers, biked 40K on gravel, including about 110 meter elevation increase over about 1 kilometer when we still had like 3K left to go. Went up Watson's Road, close to our place where I live. And then we ran to one of the other guys' places in town in Wellesley, and that was 11K on gravel, right? So that's not easy. It's not that hard because I've trained, right? Like honestly, we sat on our asses, ate some chips, and 20 minutes later, it was like, okay, yeah, let's go. You just recover, right? Because you trained for it. Well, then I turn around and play baseball, right? Which is a sport that I was one of my better sports when I was growing up. Well, I hurt myself sprinting to second base. I literally pulled my quad close to my right hip, turning from first to second. And like, what is that? Like
90 feet, I think, between the bases.
Yeah, so 180 total distance, and I hurt myself. Like, how pathetic is that? But that speaks to the human adaptability, right? You become what you train for. Mm-hmm. If you're going to sit on your ass and eat chips, that's what you're going to be, right? If you're going to do boxing or MMA, that's what or dragon boat, that's what you can do. Like, it's your body, it's insane what it adapts to.
I can
right?
relate.
Yeah.
I mean, I got up the other day from like getting off the couch and my back went out.
Aren't you like 33 or something?
Yeah.
Dude!
Yeah, he's the youngest by quite a bit.
I'm like in double digits now.
Yeah. No, dude. It's just waiting for the other testicle to drop. Right?
Yeah. I'm finally waiting for it to come in.
That's kind of like what Andrew thought was going on last night at that meeting As my voice is cracking left, right, and center.
40-year-old just hitting puberty.
Yeah. I wish I was 40.
Yeah, 40 years. Oh, yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Young at heart.
Only off by a decade and then some.
I keep forgetting you're that much older than me.
I am. I look that much better too. But,
Okay. There we go. Where's the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
Fighting
match?
words. We're gonna have the boxing match here. Pretty
there
soon.
you go.
Hang on, we're gonna start buffering.
I'm pretty buff already. Thank you very much. Actually, I'm not, man. Fuck. I was in pretty good shape at the end of summer, and then I got nuked by a bronchitis attack that I've never had in my life. I'm like 8 weeks now that I just went for my first run after 6 or 7 weeks of not running like a week ago. And like I tell you, man, I got nothing. Like it just nuked me. And even to this day, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice now, but like you can hear it getting a little bit rough as the phlegm's building up in there.
Do you follow David Goggins?
Follow, no. Watched a couple of times. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it makes me feel humble.
You know what he would say in your situation? Don't be a bitch. Just get out there,
Yeah,
man.
okay. I don't know how hardcore you're going to go, yeah.
Get hard.
Yeah,
Stay
exactly.
hard.
I love that internet meme of him running all the way to Mars. Elon Musk shows up there on his rockets.
Yes,
and it's
yes.
David Goggins going, come on!
That dude's a whole nother fucking breed, though.
Just the injuries he's sustained. Like, it's just,
Fuck.
it's unbelievable. Like, he's destroyed his body, but still just keeps pushing through it.
He did his first, marathon, 250 pounds. And was 100 mile, 100.
That's an ultramarathon.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did that just because, he's an Navy SEAL, he can do this, he do that. He said, fuck it, so he's going to go do it. Fucked up his feet, his shins, and everything in that. That was. You guys should really, really get into that.
It's crazy what people can push themselves through. So one of the more
people
impressive.
versus him.
Well,
There's a big
that's
difference.
true.
He's an
I
anomaly.
swear, if he was one of those in that little chamber in the German, he'd still be sitting in there doing push-ups while all the other guys are dropping.
So when I was in the military, one of my favorite postings was at CFB Borden, and I was involved in clothing stores, and I became a boot subject matter expert, believe it or not, which is kind of pathetic when you stop and think about it, but I knew how to fit people with boots. That was kind of, I did a lot more than that, don't get me wrong, but that was kind of what I was known for, right?
So a step in the right direction.
Yeah, basically, yes. In theory, right? Unless I didn't like you. If you're going to be an asshole, this is going to suck the next couple of weeks. No, but seriously, so it was the naval basic training. And I'm an Army guy, so of course you make fun of them for being weak, right? Well, this one girl, and she's actually a Saskatchewan girl, worked for my brother-in-law back in the day at a restaurant in White City. Anyway, she was from White City. She broke her foot and didn't know it. One of the last things you got to do to pass basic training before you go into the field is a 13K ruck march. So that's 60, 70 pounds on your back, webbing, rifle helmets. You're carrying about 90 pounds altogether, right? Blanks for ammo, not live, because you never know when you're exhausted.
Yeah, you don't
right?
want them to get pregnant when they get to the end, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, not those kind of blanks, man. Jeez, come on now. Anyway, seriously though, she had broken her foot. She didn't realize it. She just thought that she'd hurt her foot. She comes in off of that and finishes the ruck march. Oh, and then you got to do a fireman's carry right afterwards, eh? She comes in complaining that her foot's hurting, so her boot must be wrong. We peel it off. Something must be wrong with her boot. We peel off her foot, and it's like swollen. I'm like, you better get your ass to med, right? So she goes with the master corporal or master seaman in charge of her at the time. They were sitting in. Yeah,
Shut up, Tim.
We
Shut
can't let
up.
that one slide.
naval
shut up.
ranks are amazing.
I'll do it.
They really, yeah. You start out with a demotion. You have to become the leading seaman, which at one point anybody who was alive was a leading seaman.
Do you work your way up to the naval?
Yeah, exactly.
Tim's just struggling over there holding this back.
Yeah, but seriously, so she goes there to medical COI, and they check her over, get her an x-ray. She broke her foot and still went through all that, right? And this is like a 18-year-old young lady, and she's not big. She was petite.
So did they flunk her out because she didn't do the fireman's carry afterwards?
No, she finished the fireman's
wow.
carry. Like, she completely finished. I almost flunked out because of, I should have
stepped
flunked
up.
out. No, when I did the same thing, I blew up my knee. And with about 10 meters left, the guy who was on my shoulders, biggest guy in the platoon, nobody else could lift him. We called him Snake. It looked more like lurch, but that's neither here nor there. And when my knee popped, he felt it in his groin. Because, his fireman carry. He literally heard it and felt it in his groin. We were about 10 meters away from the end. And so I drooped and his boots scraped on the ground. He's like, you got this. So you limp across and I just wave over the corporal who was in charge. And he's like, you don't wave me over, private, blah, blah. Launches on me. I'm like, I don't fucking care.
So all of these outstanding performances and nobody broke a leg?
Oh, my Lord. Oh, my goodness.
There you go. That one is for you, Tim.
That wasn't even me.
That was horrible. That was absolutely
Well,
like you're being replaced.
got a couple of
Tim.
kids. Gotta get a dad joke in there every now and then.
Oops.
Good job, Vance.
Yeah, that obviously didn't get picked up on audio.
Oh, no. None of the 4 mics picked that up.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Or picking up this sound.
There it is.
excuse me. Pardon me.
We'll have to have that one queued up on the.
Just having another Pepsi.
Well,
There you go. There you go.
that's legal in Canada.
So is the weed.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. But like the human spirit though is absolutely incredible. When you stop and think about that, people can put themselves through that, and it's way more common, I think, than we think. You know what I mean? That when you really are determined, you can go through that if you choose to.
I think
And
that's
this brings us back to an earlier point in the conversation. We were talking about earlier generations, the greatest generation, World War II. And really it coming back to how much more resilient they were than today.
Yeah.
And I think mentally we may be in a different place. There's a lot of mental challenges in terms of stress, not to the same different kinds of stress, but from a physical standpoint, I don't think society has pushed anywhere near as what they were.
No, and it's not. And our society as a whole now fosters that victim mentality, right? We don't want you to be strong. We want you to be weak.
Yeah, back
So
then,
you're praised for having difficulty and problems instead of being praised for sucking it up and fucking getting through it.
they died like real men.
And there's a pride in victimhood now.
Yeah, there is. There's a competition between people.
Intersectionality.
Oh, you didn't have a bad life. I had a worse life.
I had to sweep up my own bedroom.
Yeah.
You should all go make your bed.
Uh-oh.
No, that's IKEA's job. I don't want to do all that work. I feel
That is
threatened.
crazy. That's a sign of the times that the robot vacuums, what were they? Roombas?
Roombas,
Yeah.
yeah.
Roombas?
Yeah.
That's a sign of the times that when they first came out, I remember it's like, oh, anybody who had one of those is lazy. And then at one point I owned 2.
We had
Not for
one, but
reach
eventually
bicep.
died from overuse.
Yeah, the pet hair kills them in a hurry.
Well, it had a good 6 or 7 year run, I think. But yeah.
Mine was the batteries. They all died. I think they've got better designed ones, but they don't fit my old machines. So, but I don't know.
It's like a redneck wedding. Batteries included.
I'm not getting that one.
Why not?
Yeah, I need a cricket's chirping for that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, what do the cops usually get called in for?
Assault and battery. Oh!
I could write these down and we could have a whole...
I'm thinking like dildos or some sort of sex toy, and he's going off assault
sorry.
and battery.
My jokes don't go that deep, and when they do, you'll know.
Oh, yes. All 4 inches right from Tim.
Wow.
So now that we
4
know a little
inches,
bit
I
more
wish.
about Andrew's sex life,
Hey, 2 pumps, that's at least 8.
14 in dog years.
there we go. Well, this really sucks. I was stoked to comment on this fight.
Looking
with you
forward
guys.
to the commentary in the fight here. I don't know. We're a little over. We're just about 2 hours and 15 minutes.
And nothing coming up in your phone, Vance?
Oh, I gave up.
We should give that another try because we can all huddle around a little tiny phone.
Yeah, I think for what we're going to do now, we've kept everybody listening for quite a while, and I really appreciate it if you stuck with us so far. Same thing as always. Give us lots of likes and comments on this. Let us know what you want to hear, what you didn't like hearing. This is attempt number 2, so we are very open to modifying our program here to try and keep our listeners happy.
And feel free to suggest some topics and some points of improvement.
Yeah, always new topics that you'd like to hear us discuss and talk about. We'll go from there. If our stream comes back up, we'll maybe do a second podcast as a special release, just commentary on the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. Otherwise, thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks everybody for coming. Andrew, thanks for coming. Loved having you here. Hopefully you can make this a regular occurrence with us.
Well, if we can get that sponsorship and get me that Bugatti, the real
then you're in for sure. Hey, Vance, appreciate you coming in. I know you crashed Netflix to be here, and we appreciate that so much. Tim, as always, you're an asshole, and I'll see you on Monday.
Hey,
And
I get in wherever I can.
thanks everybody for listening. Talk to you later.